Ready? All right. Welcome, everybody, to the regular meeting of the Liberty Lake City Council for April the 1st, 2025. As you have detected, I am not the mayor. The mayor and the mayor pro tem are both absent this evening, and so we're going to go through the first couple of items on the agenda, and then we'll set a chair and go from there. So Councilmember Dunn has agreed to do the invocation, so if you'll all rise for the invocation, please.
Father in heaven, we are grateful to come together as a community, as a team, to listen and to speak of the place that we call home. Inspire in us imagination and wisdom to listen and to do the right thing. Amen.
Now for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dunn. I will now officially call the meeting to order, and with that, we'll ask for a motion to name a chair.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
To appoint Annie as chair.
Second.
Does Annie want to be the chair?
Can I make a motion in a motion?
You can make another motion, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to have Dan Dunn be the chair.
Second.
Okay.
Then just vote. You want, if we're done, then you can vote on that motion first.
Are you,
I'm good if that's
Okay.
what the will of the folk here is, sure.
okay, so let's call for the vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? I guess that should have come first.
That
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah, well, just a question. So is it our understanding that neither of them will be here tonight? Was this just a temporary chair or?
So we'll call it a temporary chair. The mayor pro tem is en route. He's traveling. We expect him to be here 7-ish,
Okay,
but we'll see.
okay, perfect.
Do we need to take any action on the first motion?
No, Dan can proceed.
Okay, so with that, Mr. Chair, please proceed.
Sure. I'll move to item 3 specifically is called order and a roll call. Councilmember Van Orman,
Here.
Councilmember Kurtz,
Present.
Councilmember Ball,
Here.
Councilmember Spencer,
Present.
Dan Dunn, happy to be here. Councilmember Kennedy. Present. I'm noting absent at the moment is Pro Tem Cargill and Mayor Kaminskas. Is there a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries for 2 excused absences. We're on to citizen comment. For those who've joined us in the chambers, excuse me,
Agenda approval.
excuse me, is there any changes to our agenda?
Yes.
Councilmember Ball,
I'd like to pull 10G out of the consent agenda.
after that. Is there a second? I guess we don't have to, right? Just get the changes and then. Second to the change?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roger that. 10G now will become 11, almost A. We'll put it at the top. Any other changes to the agenda? All right. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All right, in discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've got an agenda. Now on citizen comments. For both those who are in chambers here tonight and then also those who are online. First, I'll ask for those who are in chambers would like to have a citizen comment, 3 minutes. Now's the chance. Oh man, they're shy. All right, I'll take a peek over there. If Evan, you can tell us if there's anybody online wanting to make a comment at this part. All right. We're going to move on to our
Dan?
agenda then, excuse me.
Councilmember Dunn?
Yeah.
Just for one moment, I wanted to acknowledge a citizen comment that came in advance of the March 18th meeting, which was shared and distributed with council, but I did not list in their name in the list of comments acknowledged. And so I wanted to formally do that during this meeting. That was from Karen Morris, and it was regarding the secondhand smoke topic.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelsey. All right, we'll conclude citizen comments. Move on to announcements, proclamations, and special presentations. This is the section of our meeting where we're going through various aspects of the programs that the city presents. So Mark, if you would like to introduce 7A.
And this program profile brought to you tonight by the Public Works Director, Ben Turner, will be about streets maintenance. Ben, take it away.
All right, I know that's a very exciting topic for everybody. Just waiting for the slides to pop up real quick. Next slide, please, Evan. All right, so street maintenance. I know it's on everybody's mind now that the snow's melted. Everybody can see all the potholes and they're all letting me know about them. So I appreciate that. So street maintenance, it encompasses basically everything when it comes to repairing and maintaining our roadways within the city. That includes pothole repairs, crack sealing, where you got just the cracks in the roads. It also includes sidewalk repair and street sweeping, grinding, things like that. So this represents the current budgetary line items for both personnel and non-personnel for streets maintenance. We have a streets crew of 5. They don't spend 100% of their time on streets maintenance. They do some other things as well, like putting RFBs up on Country Vista and Blue Ridge today. But this basically represents, of those 5 people, about 60% of their time is spent maintaining our roadways. So we have the personnel number, the non-personnel number. One of the things that's missing from this resources total is our capital facilities projects. That's not included in this number, as well as our capital equipment that we purchase every year to help maintain this program. So that's about another 1.5, 1.6 added to this number that we use to maintain our streets. So not included in the operating budget, but something that is put towards the health of our roadways within the city. So our basic program attributes, we're increasing a change in demand. It is a self-mandate. The majority of the population is benefiting from it. Unfortunately, there is no cost recovery. We could have other entities provide this service, and I think in the past we've started to do more and more in-house as our department has grown. In the past, for instance, we've hired out to have people do crack sealing. We're now going to do that in-house. That should result in a little bit of a savings. I think last year we spent $55,000 paying a contractor to do that. So we buy a crack sealer for $75,000. Obviously, we still have to buy the rubber and all the other materials that go in that crack sealer. But over time, that should save the city a little bit of money. Next slide, please. All right, so the street maintenance is, so the biggest strategic plan alignment is with planned growth and infrastructure. Obviously, as the city grows, the streets, our street inventory increases. So that is kind of the main driver, strategic driver for this particular program. It is more aligned to that strategic plan, mainly because it's got such a strong alignment to planned growth and infrastructure. Next slide, please. All right, so how do we measure and what are we looking for a result? So a result is our overall street condition meets or exceeds established standards for each evaluation period. We also have a question within the satisfaction survey that we recently closed that looks at what do the citizens think about the satisfaction, the quality of our street maintenance service. So one of the there's several things we can do to measure this. I mentioned the first 2 up there last week, and we talked about functional assessments. So we've got our pavement, our sidewalk scans coming in July. Those are going to give us a very up-to-date PCI score, or pavement condition index. That's an industry standard index, which will tell you basically it's a 0 to 100 scale on the condition of our current streets. And we can also track that real time as we do repairs. So the result is we want to keep that score as high as possible, but still being, we can't put all of our money into that, but having that right balance of maintenance dollars per mile to keep that PCI score high, because a higher PCI score is a better road for our citizens. We can also look at work order completion metrics, how many pothole repairs we did, how fast we did it, things like that. So in the past, we haven't been able to track that really well. We've invested quite a bit this year in software programs that are included with the scans. They're going to help us track that stuff historically, so we can see, and that'll help us budget and all those things. So we're looking forward to really using those tools, and the streets crew is very excited about that as well. All right, next slide, please. And that's it. Any questions?
Streets are probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things the city presents, right, in terms of services, and I'm grateful for the energy. You mentioned that we were really more or less out of contract services and support. Curious, I remember, we used to have Polinsky do roadkill, is that still a thing?
So we have a line item in the budget. I think it's about $1,000 a year for basically removing things like
Just in
that.
case, I get it.
It's like 20, 30 bucks. And I don't think it's through Sensky. I think it's actually through the county. If I'm correct. I was just looking at this the other day for some odd reason, but
It was a guy who had historically done a ton of service with the city, Peplinsky, I think his contracts are back there, but yeah, it was one of those little funny things I always saw on the road.
happens a
works.
couple times a year. Last year, I think we used the service twice.
But it is important stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions?
I just have a comment. Thank you for the new crosswalk at Blue Ridge and Country Vista. I live real close to that, and boy, people come whipping through there and people are crossing a lot.
Yep, that was that was a project that the mayor kind of took me on a field trip for my first couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
Like, yep, we can do that.
It's a
So
scary one. Yeah.
we're also looking at doing the next project will be the four-way stop at Country Vista and Mission.
Oh,
So the materials showed up this week and we've got to give a little bit of advance notice. So
Yeah.
those signs, those warning signs that are up on Country Vista now will probably move to Mission in the next couple of days.
Oh.
So we'll give them a couple of, hey, there's going to be a new traffic pattern that we're looking to put that as a four-way stop here in the next couple of weeks.
oh, wow. Okay.
So really help the kids get to school, things like that.
Yeah, but will the blinking thing still be there at
We're
Mission?
kind of contemplating whether we still need those if we have a four-way stop.
Oh, gotcha.
So.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And Councilmember Dunn, real quickly, as a preview for the next council meeting, within the next couple of days, you'll be receiving a report, the quarterly report for the update on the capital facility plan delivery. And then on the 15th, you'll have an opportunity, there'll be an item on the agenda where you can ask questions about that report. And Ben will be up again to field those. So just a preview for what's coming in the next couple of days.
Great. Thank you, Ben. I'm very grateful.
I do have one more question.
sorry,
To
Councilmember
follow
Paul.
up on the roadkill. So if I were, if you are the first person to discover this roadkill, who do we call?
Call me or call Stefan. We'll take care of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll call Stefan. I won't take care of it. I don't do that kind of.
Right on. All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you again, Ben. All right, on to item 8 in our agenda, reports and inquiries. I'll lead with city council. Are there any city council members with a report? Pretty quiet, so I'll take one. Last week, I think Friday, Mayor Kaminskas and I were at the ribbon cutting for Adorable Flowers' new location down there on Knox and McKenzie. So Andrew's done a fantastic job of making use of that location, and I'll just highlight is planning on having an open market, flower market, sort of an established thing on a recurring basis. So I just say stay tuned and please stop by down there on Knox and say hello to Andrea and definitely pick up a bouquet. So a great turnout and it was fun. Any other council member reports? Mayor, I'm sorry, Wendy, please.
Just that PACE is active and we will be giving out awards at the end of this month and the beginning of May. So for those that you don't know what PACE is, Partners Advancing Character Education. Yeah, we are alive and well, and we're looking forward to about 75 students that we're going to be awarding awards to for good character traits.
Oh, that's outstanding. Remind me, Councilmember Van Orman, there used to be an in-person event, kind of a gala that was held in support of it. It's
Yeah.
coming back, isn't
It
it?
is coming back
Okay.
next year.
Good.
So
That's just always a really great moment to put faces and names and recognition to the recognition that's there. So thank you for your support of that and definitely looking forward to that coming back to our community. So, thank you.
perfect. Thanks.
All right. Any other council member reports? All right. We have a mayor's item here as an agenda, but in the absence of the mayor, I'm going to say we'll move on to city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking down the reminders on the city administrator's report, just a few things to point out. Starting today, in fact, and running through the duration of April, there will be a barrel or a collection site down at the Liberty Lake Library for the Second Harvest Food Drive. And so all of this food that's collected is going to support that Second Harvest Food Drive. This is a region-wide collection effort, and the library is a collection site inside of the city. So if you have some non-perishables that you would like to donate for this effort, check out the website and bring them down to the Liberty Lake Library. The Central Valley School District spring break starts next Monday, actually probably Friday at 2:45, and extends through the 11th. So the kids will be out of school. There'll be a lot of activity on the roadways, I'm sure. But just as a reminder, spring break, lots of extra activity as we get into the latter part of spring into summer. Another reminder about the 2025 City Academy, it's upon us. Registration has opened. We have a handful of folks that have already registered. We're excited about that. We're looking for up to 15. You can sign up for the entire 8-session course, or you can come to an individual session if there's a subject matter that you're particularly interested in among those that will be presenting this year. But the first session starts on April the 24th. They will all be on a Thursday, and the first one will be over at Trailhead. But check out the website, look at the schedule, and if you're interested, please register. We'd love to have you join us. Next item, a little bit down the calendar, Friday, April 25th. We're going to have an Arbor Day tree planting out at the Liberty Lake Ball Fields. So we'll be getting together, planting a tree in commemoration of Arbor Day. And there's more information about this on our website. We'll be posting about it on our social media channels to give you plenty of notice as this is coming up. But we'd love to have you come out and participate in that as well. And then a big event that is on our calendars every year. This is part of our contract with WM for our solid waste and recycling collection, is our Clean, Green, and Bulky Waste Cleanup event. This is going to be happening at Town Square Park on Saturday, April 26th. You will receive an invitation in the mail if you're a WM customer. And with that invitation, you will be given, some guidelines of things that you can and can't bring, when to bring them, where to go when you bring them. But again, we'll be announcing this in a variety of different ways on a variety of different channels to make sure that everybody's aware of when, what, and how as we lead up to Saturday, April 26th on this. Before we move on to the other items on this agenda, are there any questions about those reminders? Councilmember Ball.
Is the Clean, Green, and Bulky Waste Cleanup, do they have a shredding thing there? Can you bring stuff to shred?
That is a great question. Let me look very quickly and see if I can see that. I don't know. That is a good question. I can get you the answer to that.
Okay.
I'd say, Linda, also the local bank branches do schedule regular shred
Yeah.
days. So
Yeah.
you step in and they could probably identify when their next one is.
This will just be convenient.
know.
I don't see that item sticking out on this flyer, so I'm going to say, let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Councilmember Kurtz.
I think in the past you guys have had like Goodwill or a secondhand store there. Are they going to be there as well?
Yes, they will be. So they will be taking donations, housewares, collectibles, clothing, textiles, accessories, tables, dressers, and a bunch of electronics. And so all of that will be highlighted on both the invitation and on the information that we send out.
Thank you.
If I can intercede on that,
Please.
it's probably what's going to be on your lips. Remember, we've got Kiwanis yard sale coming up, so
All community yard sale, the 14th of June. So if you're really ambitious, you can hold on until then.
one man's junk is another one's treasure, yes.
Uh-huh. Right on.
Any other questions?
Remind me, Mark, in the Clean Green cleanup, I know it's for residents. Do they want to look at a bill or something on the way in when you're loading in?
Yes, so you will receive an invitation, and so it's marked on the invitation, bring this with you. So you'll be required to present this at the entry to the event, and they will be sticklers about that.
Yep. Right on. Okay.
Doesn't look like there are any other questions. So with that, I'm going to invite Chief Simmons up to the podium to present the police department's annual report. Chief?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, or good evening, that is. Members of the council. I want to take a few minutes. I have quite a few slides, but I'll try to move through these as expeditiously as possible. Next slide, please. It's 2024. So we ended the year with 23 commissioned officers, 2 support staff, and 2 citizen volunteers. Of course, we found there was some room to grow, and so we staffed appropriately this year for 2025, but it was still a great year when it came to staffing for us. Next slide, please. What a year it was for calls for service. And I should have brought my glasses in, and I'm sorry I made this so small. I'm going to turn around so I can see this. Just to let you know, I just got a prescription for glasses, so I'm not very happy about that. And so we ended the year with 10,520 calls. And you can see that compared to 2023 and 2022. There were several reasons for this. Of course, the increase in population, but a couple of big things that we did is we increased our community engagement. We were more active with community events and things like HOA meetings and getting out and doing, more community events and community engagement. What I mean by advanced reporting systems, there were some improvements in technology, especially with the Real-Time Crime Center coming on board. And so we had more calls for service that originated from things outside of our typical dispatch or SHREC. But the big thing that we did was we wanted to improve our operational efficiency. And so there were some expectations that we gave our officers that generally wasn't there in the past. And that mainly revolved around making sure that we're able to document everything that we do. So when the questions arise, we're able to say, yes, we do patrol here. Yes, we do prowl checks here. Yes, we do make business contacts here. So we changed a little bit of the way we operate. And so we, again, to make an evidence-based approach to our policing and the way that we police, we changed some of those expectations and some of the ways that we operate. There was a little bit of an impact on our resources. Again, anytime you increase, what you do and that call load and that case load increases, you need additional officers and support staff. We did take a big look at training, and I think I mentioned that before, as far as making sure that when we're spending money on training, that it is career-based. It's what do you want to do for your career? We don't want to spend money and send officers to training that they're not, ultimately our goal is public safety, right? And so we want to make sure that the training that our officers are receiving is necessary and, good for their career advancement and where they want to go in their career. And of course, we're always looking at ways to, looking at our equipment and making sure that our equipment is modern and sufficient for our public safety needs. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of the calls by the month, and there may be a little bit hard to read there, but you can see our busiest months are, no surprise, summertime, and it kind of dwindles off from there. I guess people don't like January, so I'm not particularly fond of it myself when it's that cold. Next slide, please. We made 159 adult arrests and 6 juvenile arrests in 2024. Next slide. We made 3,724 traffic stops, and I'm going to make a joke. I'm pretty sure Darren Powers made 1,000 of those. We wrote 787 citations for the year. Next slide. Again, our community-oriented policing events, we did a lot. These are our bigger events, but we did a lot of HOA meetings, community meetings, and things like that. But some of our bigger ones that we're super proud of is the Law Enforcement Memorial Ceremony that's held in May. San Diego's PD Memorial Car visited and took pictures with our memorial vehicle. Our memorial vehicle is kind of a staple in the nation as far as that type of program. And so our police ambassador, John Bajosa, gets a lot of telephone calls on how do we start a program like this. And a lot of times when some of these other memorial programs, when they're en route to specific events and they're traveling through Spokane, they like to stop and talk to John and take pictures with our cars. So it's just great to know that nationwide, that program is looked up to the way it is. And you can see our local parades and community events in Washington and over in Idaho. But, you know, my favorite is the air show because I was Air Force and I like loud jets and things like that. So next slide, please. Our two officer awards, big awards this year. Officer Powers was nominated by his peers as Officer of the Year. And Officer Irving, Officer Corporal Powers now, I'm sorry, I demoted him. Corporal Powers was nominated Officer of the Year, and Officer Logan Irvin was nominated received the Employee Excellence Award. So they do a phenomenal job in our department, and I can't speak highly enough of both of these guys. Next slide, please. Property and evidence for the year. Our records clerk actually completed 774 out of the 894 records requests, public records requests for the city. That's 86.5%. They were super busy, and as you know, that is a tedious task for the redaction and the number of hours they have to spend on just one video. It's crazy. It's amazing. And I would urge each one of you to go sit down and take a look at it, because until you see it, it's something to see. So they spend a lot of time on those. We implemented a new records evidence system called Beast. We automated our system. We were doing everything by hand, and this has just been phenomenal. And of course, this is one of the big things that we did to start our move towards looking at becoming an accredited agency. And remodeling the police evidence facility was part of that. So our evidence facility is going to be the biggest headache as we move towards accreditation. We know that, and so we're really focusing, and we've been focusing on that for over a year. But hopefully this year we'll get to start that accreditation process. Next slide. We made 3 new hires in 2024 at the beginning of the year. Records and evidence custodian Cherie Barth and Officer Darren Powers came on, and Officer Chris Huda came on after that. We were super fortunate because the number of years and experience that all 3 of these individuals brought to our department is top notch. I mean, Officer Powers and I, this is our 3rd agency together. He's been around a little longer than I have, and he has almost 30 years. And Cherie is super intelligent. She has about 8 years in her world. And Officer Huda came from the WSP, Washington State Patrol, and brought a wealth of experience with him as well. Next slide. We got money in 2024, which was great. And we're trying to continue that in 2025. We received several grants. Spirit of Blue Foundation provided us with $33,273 for 23 pairs of ballistic body armor. 3A, right? 3A. Heavy duty, something that, you know, it's all about preservation of life when we respond to active shooter type incidents. And the body armor that I have on now does nothing for you when you get into those situations. The Dickey Foundation provided us with $3,500 to purchase the external carriers for that body armor. And then we also received a traffic grant from the state of Washington for $3,800 for some traffic equipment. And the biggest thing that I'm proud of, honestly, out of this whole slide is the $23,000 grant that we received. It's a health and wellness grant. And I don't know if we've had time to discuss this with you, but our officers have been going to the emergency responder health center, which they have one now. We were splitting time between Boise. They recently opened their 2nd clinic here in Spokane, in the Spokane area. They specialize in emergency services personnel, so fire and police mainly. And it's not your typical, I go see my provider and I spend 10 minutes and go get my blood drawn. I mean, this is an extensive examination. Takes about 3, I haven't been yet, about 3 hours. 3 hours, and it is, and they've let's just say that they've caught some things that have probably saved some of our officers' lives already. So we're super proud of that. So next slide, please. Our final budget position, you can see here, for 2024, was, just short of $5 million, and we had about $49,000 left over. Next slide. So this is new. This is something that I wanted to do this year, is pull the use of force data, and also want to pull the pursuit data, but our pursuit data was a little bit skewed. It wasn't coming up correctly. And so I just want to let you know, and I want to give you this because when we talk about training, this is kind of a testament that when it comes to training and de-escalation and the ability to really talk and get through to people, our officers are doing a great job, because our use of force data is pretty low, comparatively speaking. And so as I go through this is going to be super quick because, like I said, it's super low and I'm super proud of this. It does not include our officer-involved shooting from December the 21st. Some of the data is a little bit skewed because some of the stats include that one person and some doesn't. So you may see some of the data off by one. That is why. And the reason why is because the investigation and the program that we use to track this data, the investigation is incomplete. It's still ongoing. And once we complete that, it'll roll some of the numbers over to some of those areas. So next slide. So we had 6 use of force incidents with 12 employees involved. That's pretty good. That's it for 2024. I was really surprised. But the reason I pulled this is because I was trying to remember a use of force incident besides our OIS. And so I think this is great. Next slide, please. The type of force used, you can see here, verbal, and some of these may be a combination in one incident, but you can see a level 1 hold. What we consider a hold is like an arm bar, something like that, where there's not like a takedown or any punches thrown or any blunt force strikes or anything like that. 6 level 1 takedowns, one level 2 strike, which is like an elbow or a knee or a punch, a taser display, and 3 verbal as far as giving commands. Next slide, please. So when we say citizen, in our program, citizen typically means suspect, but they like to call them citizens. In some places they call them students. Don't ask me why. But they call them students, but we call them citizen in our Blue Team program. No resistance, that could be a little misleading. That is passive resistance, and that is, hey, get up, I'm dead weight. No, I'm not resisting, but I'm not getting up type thing. Yeah, you are, you're dead weight. And so there may be a hold or something used in that. Active resistance was 5, and aggressive physical resistance was 3 of those individuals, for a total of 9 different incidents. And again, some of these may be a crossover between one incident. You may have someone that went from no resistance to being a physically resistant or aggressive in the same incident. Next slide. In one incident, we did not make an arrest. In 5 of those 6, we made an arrest. Next slide. The charges, even though crisis is not a charge, but you see in one of those incidents that someone in crisis was involved. They were having a mental health crisis. A discretionary arrest is something like obstructing, is typically the charge that you're going to see here, or resisting arrest. DUI, couple of felony crimes against person, a felony crimes against property. Warrants was 1, misdemeanor 3, a misdemeanor as far as against another person, like an assault or something to that extent, and property, a misdemeanor 1, and 1 on a traffic stop. Next slide, too. Next slide. Wow, I have no idea what that's small. So citizens injured in the force. We had 3 injured during the use of force, and 3 weren't. 5 of the individuals were taken to the hospital. 1, yes, a lot of times that is precautionary. If you use force, it's just to get them checked out. Often if you use force and you take people to the jail, and you tell them that they've used force, they'll ask you if they've been examined by medical, and they may refuse them at the jail until you get them cleared by a medical professional. So sometimes that's just precautionary. We did have one employee with a minor injury and 11 of those 12 during those incidents had no injuries and no employees were taken to the hospital. Next slide. And again, you can see here the citizen injuries. One was treated at the scene, one complained of an injury, one had a minor injury, and 4 no injuries. Next slide. The reasons for the use of force in all these incidents, one was in defense of another person, 2 were in defense of self, and 3 were non-compliance. And we see that non-compliance across the board nationally more than you see a lot of these other 2 categories, excuse me. Next slide. Types of service we were rendering during the use of force incident. You can see one was a call for service. Another was civil disorder. And that's usually if we have like a, what would you call it? It's escaping me. Disorderly, thank you. A disorderly individual. 2 were doing an investigation and 2 were doing a traffic stop. Next slide, please. The demographics, the average age of the citizen or the suspect was 30. And you can see the age breakdown here. 3 were 29 or 20 to 29, 3 were 30 to 39, and 4 were that 40 to 49 age. Next slide. 3 were female and 4 were male. Next slide. That's it? Oh, I'm sorry, next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, go back. I'm sorry, you can go back. Yeah. Sorry. Demographics as far as race, 2 were unknown and 5 were Caucasian. Next slide. Detail here. Under 20 were 0, and this is the age race that breakdown. The females were 30 to 39 was 1, male 30 to 39 was 1. Caucasian, you can see here 1, 1, and 2 as far as the 20 to 29 and 30, 39 and 20 to 21. Next slide. That's it.
Right on. Are there questions for Chief regarding the annual report? Councilmember Van Ormer.
It's what's not in your report that I have a question on the community page. They were talking about around the parks and so forth, that vehicles are getting broken into. Thank you very much for posting something on there of how not to leave their valuables in their cars. But the other one is the Tesla. I understand that there has been picketing and so forth. How did that go?
You know, the protests have gone fairly well as far as the protest. The protesters have been super respectful of law enforcement when we're there. They've actually been pretty thankful. They've sent several emails to my email thanking us for being there. The issues, for the most part, hasn't been the protesters. It's been the people driving by. That's been the issue. And so we've addressed that. The businesses, I've had contact with all the business owners around there several times, and they've taken all the necessary precautions to protect their businesses and their property as far as parking and making sure that they can remain operational and people aren't, filling up their parking lots and their customers aren't able to, to use their facilities. But the protests have been great. The break-ins in the park were a combination of Liberty Lake and Post Falls. They hit us both pretty hard, same suspects. But I hate to say it, the areas that they're hitting are the target rich environments, and those are the ones where people are leaving their stuff in their cars. It kind of it's to me, are you going to go fishing in a pond with no fish? No, you're going to go where there's fish. And unfortunately, people who leave things in their cars are fresh fish. And so if we can stop doing that in our community, we'll stop a lot of these break-ins. And so our investigators have partnered with Post Falls PD, and I will tell you that there's an active investigation and there's some great leads.
Perfect.
So
That's what my next question was gonna be, if there was any leads.
Oh, yeah, there's leads.
Great.
Councilmember Ball.
Couple questions. So on the one OIS that happened last year in December, it happened in Otis Orchard. So why does it count kind of in our reporting, you know? Just
Be-
because it was an officer?
Because it's one of our officers, yeah.
Okay, and then on the various levels of force, I'm just curious, do you remember what happened when I went on my ride along with the guy that?
They rammed the police vehicle.
Yeah, he rammed several police vehicles.
That was quite the ride, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great fun. So then when you got him out of the van and he was still protesting, I mean, I know you got him to calm down, but what level of force was that? I mean, I don't.
I'm trying to remember the body cam from that. And if I can recall, I think they were using, I think they did a takedown, like a controlled takedown.
Yeah.
And then everything else was just control holds,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, I
there-
think
I
it
don't-
was, I think at one time they kind of said, we're gonna taser you if you don't,
Mhm.
you know, that's kind of what.
And that's verbal.
Okay,
That's verbal. If you, when you threaten, you know, hey, if you don't stop, I'm gonna tase you.
yeah,
I'm gonna pepper spray you.
right,
I'm gonna thump you with this big stick right here called a baton. Those are verbal.
okay,
And of course, and then we have the things like, if you pull your taser, that's a display. If you pull your firearm, that's a display if you don't point it at someone.
okay,
So there's various, the verbiage and there's various
Yeah.
levels and the way we look at it as far as what to classify force when it's used. And it's pretty standard across the board here in Washington.
thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Chief. Very, very excellent report. It's nice to know that, if the citizens realize that we're getting good coverage is in there. The thing that really stands out, I found most interesting was the age bracket of individuals that they fall into. So the highest age was 49. So it must show it takes 49 years before you get your act together to realize don't do stupid things. So all of those over 49, congratulations. Those under who hear our voice, we'll keep an eye on you.
Well, I'm 49 this year and I'm just now learning, so I'll be 50 this year.
But you have glasses now.
I have glasses now.
Great. Chief, I'll throw one. I recognize we're contract jail services in Spokane County. Can you speak to how the county's been able to support your men with services and support for jail?
Our relationship with the jail has always been great. The problem with the jail is that facility is about 25 years too old. It is not sufficient for our current population in Spokane County. It is not sufficient for general public safety operations. And what I mean by that is, you got to remember that correctional facilities they do more than just house inmates. We can talk about medical care. We can talk about the big thing right now for us is that our medical and mental health, both together. I'll couple those together. Our facility is not set up, Spokane County Jail is not set up to provide the level of medical care and mental health care that is needed in our community for the people who are unfortunately moving through that facility. That's a big thing. Another thing is there's not enough space. It is not uncommon for our officers to make an arrest, drive down to the jail, and have to sit there for 3 hours before you can even get inside to start booking an inmate or an in custody into the jail. Because there's no space and they're trying to do the best they can, it's also not uncommon to make an arrest, get into the facility, and you're in custody. And what I mean by in custody is the person that you arrested, you're in custody, is out of the jail and on his way home before you get out and you're done with your paperwork.
Right.
And I don't know how many times, and this may sound funny, but I don't mean this as a joke. we've had officers walk out of the jail and the person that they arrested asked them for a ride home. Our jail's always on what they call red light, which means stop, don't come here. We're not accepting anyone. And so what happens is if you have a mandatory arrest, like a domestic violence arrest or a felony arrest where you don't have a choice to cite and release or request a summons through the prosecutor's office, you're minus an officer or two on the street because they're sitting outside the jail for 4 or 5 hours waiting on, the jail to go off of red light. Going back to the medical, one of the biggest things that the medical issue is caused is the protest, our arrest that we made on Saturday. If they had the correct, if we had a facility where, they could provide appropriate medical care, that would have been an easy, we go book our in custody in and come back and continue to deal with the protests. But we get down there because this person had a minor medical issue, a blood pressure issue. They wanted us to take her to the ER to get cleared. And so that's another 3 hours. And it's not uncommon for, minor medical issues for the jail to turn away officers. And then you have to go to Sacred Heart. You have to go to Deaconess. And now that's another 3-hour wait. And then you have to go back to the jail, and that's another 2 or 3 hour wait. This is common. This is all day, every day in this county. And you can imagine how that decimates staffing. And luckily in our community, we don't have to make as many arrests as in the Valley and in the city of Spokane and some other parts. But, I can remember as a sergeant with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, if I had 10 guys working in the Valley, I can almost guarantee you that 7 of them were going to be down at the jail most of the day. So it was going to be, I was always, 3 or 4, I was only going to have 7 on the street because they were going to be down there waiting for hours. And that was going to rotate the next time the next arrest was made. So I don't know. I would say I don't know how to solve that, but I do know how to solve that is we need another jail. Plain and simple.
I appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
Question.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Excellent question, Councilman Dunn. Do you foresee the possibility that ever, because of the situation you just explained, which has really been ongoing for over 25 years, we've been trying to expand that jail, that we in Liberty Lake would get to the point we may have to have some sort of temporary jail or something?
I don't think we have the arrest. I don't think we have the numbers. And that's something we can always explore as a temporary holding facility. And I know there are small cities in the state of Washington that have their own jails that are our size. I think 1 or 2 of them that are top of my head. But I don't think we're there yet. I think the citizens of Spokane County are going to have to make that decision one day, and that's a hard decision. And there's going to have to be some hard conversations and some difficult conversations. But I can tell you that, years ago, I had the fortune of traveling around the country to different jails all around the country when I was doing extradition as a detective. And I can honestly say that our jail has been outdated for a long, long, long time. A long time. And I'm just really surprised we're able to operate with the efficiency that we still operate under in that jail. So.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Final item regarding the 2025 Community Satisfaction Survey. This is just to give you a summary now that it has closed. First of all, I want to thank everyone who participated, those who received the invitation, went in, completed the survey. Just to give you a little taste of the numbers, we had 296 folks start the survey. 242 of those answered at least one question, and then 226 of those answered all questions. And so if you compare that to last year's numbers, if you'll recall, we had about 175 answer all questions. So we increased our number of responses by about 30%. And so that's good news. We still didn't get to the level that we wanted to with total responses, but That's okay. We did better than we did last year. And so next steps is that we will compile a report and we will bring a draft report for the council's review on May 6th.
Great.
And if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer. If not, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Great. Hey, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the observation. On our agenda now, that brings us to 8D and a report inquiry, Planning Commission. Jody, got any notes for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do have an update for you again. As you know, we're continuing to work our way through our comprehensive plan and all of the issues that come with that. Yeah, I brought a visual aid to give you an idea of what all we are dealing with at the moment. Hold on there. These are just the proposed changes to the code that we have currently that we're dealing with on housing only. Everything in green is recommended. Everything in red is mandatory. And the one that's highlighted in yellow, I'll talk about in a moment. But this will give you some idea of what we're doing just with code changes that are coming up for the comprehensive plan. Some of it based on law that has been passed. Some of it is based on the recommendation that we're getting from our consultants. So we are primarily still focusing on housing and community issues because housing is so fundamental to the community. We're also looking at things like economic development and integrating in that with part of it. Mr. McAvoy made a presentation to us about our economic development and what we're looking at and involving things such as looking at tourism, looking at housing in particular for us as a planning commission. So we're trying to align economic development with our comp plan and to include that with alignment with the city's strategic plan. So looking at all of those aspects is a pretty heavy lift, as you can imagine. That's why we as the commissioner are meeting twice a month now instead of once a month. So one of the things that we're looking at is the different housing elements, types of housing, single family, multifamily, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which are now, we have to allow them if the developer wants to put them in, or if a homeowner wants to put them in. Right now, an ADU is pretty prohibitively expensive because they have to have their own sewer, water, utilities separate. So to put an ADU in would be quite an expensive issue to deal with. We also are looking at and trying to put all this in terms of the historical perspective of Liberty Lake. We are in the midst of producing a story map to show some of the historical items. For example, the oldest structure in the city. Does anybody know where it is?
The Rocky Hill Barn?
Now it's on Mission. It's a home built in 1908. So those are the kind of things that we're wanting to look at to see how does all this fit with where we've come and the basis of what has become the city of Liberty Lake that we all know and love. We also are looking at the co-living housing, which is the one that I mentioned earlier that was highlighted in yellow. Co-living is a code that we did not have, but we are required to have, and unfortunately, we can't wait until 2026. It has to be done by the end of this year. And so we're working on that code. Co-living, as you probably know, means each individual has their own room, which is lockable. And then they share bedroom or bathrooms, kitchen, that type of thing, common area. So that is one thing we don't have that we've got to implement. And then the other one that we haven't done a lot with and we don't have a lot of code to address is converting existing buildings, industrial or commercial buildings, to housing. And that's one of the things we also have to take a hard look at. So we're working through those. That's basically all of that. We did pass 2 design reviews lately. The old Pita Pit is being remodeled. A bank, Chase Bank, has taken over that facility and we'll be remodeling that into a bank. So we're going to end up with banks on almost all 4 corners there. And then building a 2310 North Swing Lane is being rehabbed. That building has been vacant for a while. Welch Comer is working on that, and that will be updated and ready for occupancy probably this year.
Where was that address?
I'm sorry?
What address was that?
It's 2310 North Swing Lane. Yeah, I didn't know where it was either, so. So that pretty much in a nutshell is it. We are continuing with our efforts and we're getting a lot of cooperation and a lot of help from our consultants. They are doing a yeoman's job and providing us with a lot of data and a lot of information. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
The
Ms. Ball.
historical house on Mission, I knew that was the oldest one. Is it occupied?
It is.
I mean, are they the
As far
owners?
as I know, it's occupied. Yes, there are cars coming and going out of that driveway. Yes.
Okay, but I mean, are they the owners or are they renting
I
it?
don't know. Don't know. But this story map will come up on the website. It's still being worked on by staff. I do want to compliment planning staff. They have been incredible. They're doing an enormous amount of work with not nearly enough people. I know you don't want to hear that, but they are amazing at what they're getting accomplished for us. The Planning Commission we're blessed to have the staff that we have working with us. Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, cap last under 8 then is Liberty Lake Sewer and Water. I don't think we got a guest or, not a step right up here.
Good evening, City Council. I just have 2 quick things. One, I want to thank the police. It's nice that they were here today. Because it's April Fool's Day, I'm going to tell you the background on the story. We had a very contentious sewer and water district meeting. Most of our meetings are much calmer than this and less attended. And because of the great Otis Orchard saga, which, just so you know, not all, but some people were very clear that what this was all about was the city of Liberty Lake has this clandestine, devious plan to take over Otis Orchards. And your plan is to use the sewer district as the tool to take over Otis Orchards. So you guys got someone to come to us and ask us to annex the city of Otis Orchards or the Otis Orchards area into the sewer district, which would then somehow become part of the city of Liberty Lake. And we're all in this for the money. We're making a ton of money running these cost recovery agencies like the city and sewer district. Anyway, we had a very contentious meeting. We ran out of space. We had a fire code issue. We knew this was coming and we had contacted the police beforehand and asked them to come. And they did a great job of having a presence and diffusing the situation. You know, you saw that they sort of, I don't know what they called it, the use of force. There was no use of force, but it was really close a couple times. Anyway, it was some excitement, but I wanted to thank the police, the City of Liberty Lake Police, and it was in our offices in the City of Liberty Lake, but so thank you all for that. The only other thing is that you may have noticed the annual flooding down south of Sprague when we let water out of the lake to the adjudicated lake level, which is lower than what we'd like it to be. But anyway, we opened up the valves and water comes out, and I think it's all gone now, and it should be kind of going down by the golf course and stuff. So there's not a lot of snowpack. I don't anticipate much more water coming out. That's it. Any questions for me?
Right.
All right, thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Good luck with your plan, by the way, to take over.
To take over. That's right. Listing the water district. All right. Well, with that then, Mayor Pro Tem, you want to take on at position 9 in our agenda workshop discussion?
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dunn. So we are up to 9A, the TIF lift extension and 3-year project update. Looks like Kyle is going to be our guy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. While Evan pulls that up, we touch on this briefly every year. but it's not something that's always at the forefront of our mind. Some of us know plenty about the TIF and LIF mechanism. Some of us know some. Some of us have heard the words TIF and LIF before, and that's about it. Some people are hearing about this for the first time. So it's always beneficial to give a little bit of a refresher on the history, what it is, and kind of how we're going to go forward. So next slide, please, Evan. And so a brief history of this. So the city authorized the county to create what is called an increment area back in 2025. Increment area and river district revenue development area can be used interchangeably. They are the same taxing mechanism. And so whereby you establish a base year for property tax and assessed value, 75% of the increase in property tax above that base year goes into the tax increment financing fund, which is held with the county. There are 3 partners involved in our specific tax increment financing program. So we have obviously the city, we have the county, and we have Spokane Valley Fire. And so we each contribute some portion to get what is the current balance of the TIF year over year. And so the term is 20 years. We'll talk about that a little bit later here tonight. And obviously these are spent on public improvements dedicated to advancing kind of the central plan of the increment area as it was adopted back in 2006. So next slide, please, Evan. So what is TIF? And so TIF is public financing dedicated to infrastructure improvements designed to encourage private development with the whole goal of increasing the value of the increment area. So this is kind of a self-fulfilling exercise whereby you're investing in the infrastructure that thereby increases the value of that same area. So how does it work? So you establish an increment area, which the city did back in 2005. You establish that base tax here, which the city did in 2006. And then we're tracking that year over year. What is the increase in the assessed value? What's the increase in the property tax collection? That amount goes into that TIF fund held at the county. And then those revenues are then used to develop projects within the increment area to achieve that overall goal of increased value, economic development, and so forth. Next slide, please, Evan. So with that, there is an additional component to this that you always hear. TIF and LIF are kind of used in conjunction with each other, and that's on purpose with our specific situation. There are plenty of examples of TIFs across the state without kind of a co-sponsoring LIFT mechanism. But I'll take you through the mechanism of the LIFT as well here tonight. So obviously LIFT stands for Local Infrastructure Financing Tool. And this is a state economic development initiative that is really used as a companion to our TIF. And so this was developed back in 2008 or 2007, sorry. The initial contribution year was 2009. And I believe there were 9 pilot entities that kicked this off. Bellingham, Mount Vernon, Bothell, a handful over on the west side. Yakima was part of that, Puyallup, and then us over here. So it ended up being a phenomenal program that the city was able to take advantage of and recognize the benefit of this LIFT program. And so what is it? And so the LIFT is, again, at the state level, state funds are matched from our local sources. So it's a dollar for dollar match, as I said, as a companion to our TIF. So if we generate up to $1 million, the state's going to kick in an additional $1 million a year towards economic development and public infrastructure. And so this is a phenomenal way to kind of crowdsource. Let's say we are contributing $400,000 a year. We get $400,000 from this partner, we get $200,000 from this partner, and suddenly our $400,000 contribution becomes $2 million. And so that is a phenomenal way to kind of crowdsource public infrastructure dollars for economic development. And so I'll take you through an example. I've listed it here. On the next slide's a much more simpler kind of visual, but 2017, our TIF with our partners generated $730,000. But in an effort to maximize that dollar for dollar match, the city kicked in the remainder to get to that $1 million for us to realize that full $2 million benefit. Again, in 2024, you see these property assessments and values increase. This is the intended outcome of the TIF. Our TIF generated 1.6 million. And so there isn't any additional contribution required on the part of the city to realize that maximum dollar for dollar match. So we are getting that $1 million match from the state automatically now and going forward for the life of the TIF and lift. So that said, the term of the lift is 25 years. That will expire in 2034. The lift, the TIF, we extend in 5-year increments that will eventually match the sunset of the lift. If that is the will of the council, we'll get buy-in from county commissioners, Spokane Valley Fire. This is truly a group effort to kind of continue this program with all of our different stakeholders. So, and so on the lift side, this is an economic development initiative. Lift funds are to be spent on public improvements that would benefit economic development within this increment area. And so we have designed these infrastructure improvements with economic development in mind. We have at least 23 businesses in operation today that were not when this increment area started. So you have that proof right there that it is doing the intended outcome. So next slide, please, Evan. So this is a good visual to understand the kind of the intent of the lift. And so your state government is distributing these funds to cities. Your cities are investing local funds and state contribution to infrastructure that then spurs economic development by private developers that then in turn increases tax revenue and economic activity that then is used by the state to continue this cycle. Next slide, please, Evan. We just talked about this last week. So that visual and this visual is a perfect encapsulation of kind of our capital investment strategy of this private public partnership that, you know, we have great private partnerships in the city that have allowed this TIF and lift program to really take off and thrive. And so if you don't have good partners on the private side, a lot of times these initiatives and these mechanisms may fail. So we have a really, really strong relationship with our private developers. And you can see this is a core function of what we brought to you last week in our capital investment strategy. Next slide, please. So this is a map, and I apologize, that red line is pretty small. And I'll verbalize it here. This is the boundary of the increment area or the revenue development area. West to the city line, north to some portion of the river on the east, and then there is a chunk in the county that you can see in that top middle that is in that revenue development area that is Totus Orchards or unincorporated Spokane County. And then south so far east to Trutina, south to I-90, and then there is a little chunk right over near the Green Acres flyover on the far bottom left hand that is still part of that increment area. And if you can see kind of right towards the middle of that, right where that juts up, that line is right where Kramer Overpass is. And so you can see that was built with intent to hopefully join south and north of the freeway to provide better traffic flow to all parts of the city. And so that was the Kramer Overpass was a perfect example of that execution mechanism that benefits economic activity to this revenue development area, also called the River District as well. So that's the common name for the greater revenue development area is obviously the River District. So next slide, please. this is really small, but it's a good encapsulation of all of the projects that have been completed over the life of the TIF and LIFT program. And so you have total projects exceeding $23 million that were initiated primarily by private developers. They then donate that infrastructure to the public, that's streets, that's sewer mains, that's all sorts of different public improvements with an eye towards economic development, dating all the way back from 2007. And then obviously as recently as we finished Kramer Overpass in 2023. And then our Cataldo Avenue extension was our latest one that just got completed over by Western States. Next slide, please. So today, here's where we're at the start of 2025 combined in our TIF and LIFT funds. And we use those interchangeably because we use them substantially for the same purpose. So when Greenstone or when the city or when another partner developer completes these improvements and have deeded them to the city, they will go to the county to present for reimbursement. And this is done as a partnership primarily between the city and the county, assisting these private developers in accessing these reimbursements, subject to obviously the city owns and has approved the infrastructure prior to them asking. And so you see, we start 2025 with 9.5 million. We'll generally expect to see 2.5, potentially north of that, a year through 2027. And so what you're going to see on April 15th is a resolution that identifies TIF and LIFT eligible projects for the next 3 years. In that resolution that you'll see on the 15th, we've identified potentially $16.2 million in public improvements. Next slide, please. And so we'll touch on each one of those just briefly here. I'll get you a visual on the next slide here as well. But proposals for our resolution on the 15th largely involve Greenstone. They're our primary private developer partner. So we have Harvard Road Trailhead. We have a Kramer extension from Mission. Right now, that roundabout is stubbed right at Mission. They plan to punch that through as early as the end of this year to Indiana. The Indiana extension east of Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District. The Harvest Parkway extension south. So that is your main access point to Selkirk Middle School. They will punch that through south, likely to Cataldo. And then we have the North Liberty Lake Plaza. I don't have a ton of details on that. That's going to be kind of across, it's on the north side of Indiana, across from those apartments. The exact street escapes me, but I'll have a visual up here on the next slide. From a different partner developer, they will be extending Cataldo further east to Kramer and Mission. Right now, Cataldo ends right at Western States. They're planning to punch that through later this year as well. And then we have a placeholder for STA for transit parking. So that is at the far southwest end of the increment area. They've been in discussions on this potential project for quite some time, but we have that placeholder in there for that phase one of that. And then finally, a roundabout at Harvard and Wellington. Wellington is your access into Trutina to further develop our traffic safety at that end as well. So next slide, please. So I promise I did this visual all by myself without the help of my 8-year-old child. So I know this is really hard to see. We'll go through each of these one by one. But this is just an overview from Google Earth as you'll see it today. That bottom left-hand yellow highlight is the STA Transit. Just above that, that blue indicator is our Harvest Parkway extension south. The light green is our Cataldo extension over to Mission. Our lighter yellow is that Kramer extension north to Indiana. The pink is the North Liberty Lake Plaza. The red that you can hardly see up there is our Harvard Trailhead improvements. And then over there you have Harvard and Wellington Roundabout. And then further east from there is that Indiana extension. Next slide, please. Okay, so from here, a couple of touch points that we'll need to first off, extend the TIF another 5 years if that's the will of this council, the will of the commissioners, and will of Spokane Valley Fire. I'm going to plan on briefing the county commissioners on April 15th that morning on the perceived intent to extend the TIF 5 years. This is just a briefing there. They're not acting on anything. This is just providing them largely the same information I'm providing you tonight. And then obviously we have our next council meeting on April 15th. There will be a resolution presented to extend the TIF for an additional 5 years to December 31st, 2030. The current TIF expires this year, December 31st, 2025. So again, April 15th, we'll have another resolution identifying these proposed improvements that I've just provided you tonight in our kind of rolling 3-year project update. And then sometime later on this spring, potentially early summer, assuming the resolutions get approved, we would then present this to the county commissioners to ratify the resolution and extend the TIF, get that memorialized on their end. So with that, I stand for questions, comments. This can be a pretty dense topic that we don't cover several times throughout the year, so I completely understand that questions may arise. So,
yeah, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate the presentation. I'm sure I'm missing something here on the TIF. Those are actually a percentage of the tax dollars that we would have collected anyway.
Correct.
And so I guess I'm just trying to understand the what the benefit gained is by pooling it. Are we ultimately bringing all those tax dollars back in for the projects that we use TIF for?
Yeah, so the revenue development area lies 95% within the city, and there hasn't been any improvements outside of the city. So the city realizes all of those public improvements.
I see. Okay.
Councilmember Dunn.
I'd compliment by saying it's the state match. I think that's the principal value.
Right.
These dollars collected, I'd say, are actually doubled, so to speak, based on the state. So that's what I think one of the primary values is. Kyle, one of my perceptions is the utility of TIF lift is that physical construction can oftentimes be more efficiently produced by private enterprise than by public entities. And so TIF in this gesture then creates the opportunity for construction projects literally to come together at I would say, significantly less a total expense than if it were to be undertaken by a public agency. Is that a fair statement?
Certainly, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, just to piggyback off that, and I understand the match. I guess I'm trying to understand the difference between us collecting those funds and using them for the same purposes rather than them being pooled. Does LIFT require that they come from a mechanism like TIF, or it sounds to me like we just have to come up with the money. So up to $1 million, then the state matches it.
We had to use other funds for the first, I would say, 14 years to complement any shortfall that was generated from the TIF. So if us as a city, if we are collecting $500,000 a year without the TIF, we obviously would use that towards any operating capital. But to Councilmember Dunn's point, the crowdsourcing that then becomes $2 million a year that accomplishes a lot of the same goals is, I think, the major benefit of the program.
Kyle, I was going to ask you a quick question regarding the conspiracy that we're taking over.
Oh, sure.
Photo ordinance. That one map that you had up there, and I think you answered this question, but just correct me if I'm wrong, about the portion north of the river.
Yeah.
No projects have been done in that area.
Correct.
Do we have anything on the horizon?
Nothing will, nope, nothing will be done up there.
Okay.
So.
Councilmember Van Orman, were you gonna?
Just a comment of being on the ground floor.
Yes, absolutely.
And seeing that at that time, there was nothing, no Tertina, no River District, and having that tool has been phenomenal in growing what our base is right now. So yeah, I definitely am in favor. of
Right,
extending.
staff would certainly recommend the extension. I think if Washington State was approached by another state about the efficacy of the LIFT program, they would put Liberty Lake forward, I would say, above any of those other pilot entities.
Any other questions for Kyle? Councilmember Ball.
I just have a question about some of the projects. Well, the one extending Indiana east to the north of Liberty Lake Water and Sewer.
Mhm.
Where does it go from, I mean, where does it connect to
It
something?
would connect to the backside of Trutina back there.
Mhm.
What'd you say, man? Oh, okay, okay, all right. So, okay, to the back of Trutina, gotcha. Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Gal.
excellent. Thank you.
Anything else on TIF lift, Mark?
No, Mayor.
Okay.
Pro Tem.
All right, so we'll move on to 9B, the commission appointment process. Did you want to lead this, Mark, or how were you?
So I can kick off the conversation. I feel like this is largely a reconsideration by the council, and I think what we would like at minimum tonight is to get some consensus on how to proceed with reformulating the application to include any additional questions that you may want to see on there going forward. And so earlier, was it yesterday? I sent out an email with all of the questions that had been submitted. And so some of those are similar. But really, I think what I'd like to accomplish at minimum, and obviously the council can have discussions and other about other pieces of the appointment process. But at minimum, I'd like to get some direction on how to reformulate the application to incorporate this legislative questionnaire that has been discussed in the past.
Before we do that, Mark, can you read the questions that we submitted so that folks who are watching can hear them?
Yes. So there are 6 questions, and some of these are multi-part. So number 1, and these are in no particular order. For the board commission you applied for, what do you wish to contribute? Are there things in Liberty Lake that you wish were better, that you think this board commission can help improve for the community? How does the board commission you applied for align with your skills and interests? What amenity would you like most to see in Liberty Lake, and why? Do you believe that everyone should have a voice in our local government? Why is community input important to you? Do you feel that you have a solid understanding about the duties and responsibilities of this appointment? If so, briefly describe those duties and responsibilities. And finally, please describe how your professional and/or life experience has prepared you to serve in this capacity.
All right, questions, comments? Who wants to start? Councilmember Kennedy?
Comment only, I think the important thing that we try to get accomplished with this is that I think we've struggled over the years is that we put the mayor of our city in between the rock and the hard place to come up with the interviews, things of this sort here, and then come back to the council for approval when we know nothing about the individual. The application is, many things are crossed off, which we probably, I don't need to know the address where the individual lives and this type of stuff. My interest has always been is that whatever the questions are asked of the candidate, the council has the answer to those same questions. I feel we should have mirrored absolutely what the interview is and what the answers are and the information given to the council. So we're on the same plane level of putting the mayor in the position to try to give these recommendations. And also, when we put an application out there or ask for applications, it'd be nice to know from a council standpoint, how many people applied? And who are these individuals? I feel that those applications are part of the information that I, as a council member, have the right to see. Be able to base my opinion on who I feel is qualified and not qualified.
Okay. Other questions, comments, or thoughts? Councilmember Kurtz.
Well, I have 2. I want to go back to Councilmember Kennedy's comment, but when I'm looking at the application that we have currently with the questions that Mark sent out earlier, we have a professional qualifications and/or work experience. And maybe if we used question number 6, which is please describe how your professional and or life experience has prepared you to serve in this capacity. I like that question better than maybe what we have now. That might be one thing for, I don't know if we're voting on everything, like I don't know how to do this. But that would be my comment. So we can talk about that, and then I have a follow-up to Councilmember Kennedy.
Councilmember Dunn.
I do appreciate that. When I study what we have as the web form, which I think to operationalize this effect, we're talking about changes to the web form that's used in this application process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the only one that I could suggest. I don't have a really significant need to significantly change this, maybe for the word choices that you suggested, Ann. Thanks.
I'll just jump in real quick here. I liked all the questions that were put in. I do think some of the questions that we submitted are good because they help us get a better sense of who the person is and why they're applying. I did think one question was perhaps more specific to some commissions or boards than the others, and that was the amenity question. Obviously, I don't know necessarily that I would need to know, for instance, if somebody was, well, I guess we could, but if in the future, when we have the new library, I don't know that I would need to know from a library board trustee applicant whether they want to see other amenities in the city. I'm not necessarily sure if that's relevant. However, I would like to know that for a person who perhaps is on the planning commission or someone who might have that particular interest as part of their job description, so to speak. So that's the only one I would think would be perhaps more specific to one application than the other. I do want to also touch on what Councilmember Kennedy pointed out, is that this is just as much, I should say, for us as it is for the community who gets to read through these packets. If there are any people out there who actually read all 400 pages or 300 pages of a council packet every other week, I would hope they would be able to see who these people are, why they're applying for these particular positions. And so I think the more information, the better. And we threw out a bunch of different ideas when we were originally talking about this a couple of months ago. And this is kind of the one that we settled on. But I don't think we should discount the possibility of other ideas as well to try to get the council more involved. I also think that one other thing that we just need to be cautious of is that if we put all these questions in a survey, are we going to be out of questions to ask a person who might be up for a nomination at a specific meeting? So in other words, they're going to show up to the meeting. We're going to say, or the mayor will say, do you have any questions? And we're not going to really have any questions. So are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot with that particular path is just some of the thoughts that I had. I know Councilmember Kurtz, you wanted to circle back to something that Councilmember Kennedy had said.
Well, I did, but I wanted to circle back to yours first. I think to that point, I think that there's some good questions that we brought up. But I also want to make sure that we're not having too long of an application too. So if we can find some balance in that way. I like getting the information out, but I also want to caution us to not ask questions just to ask questions. What are we going to do with that information? And then some of the general things that I sent to Mark too had to do with how to kind of get at maybe question 5, which was, do you feel that you have a solid understanding about the duties and responsibilities of the appointment, and briefly describe those duties or responsibilities. The thought that I had was having on the application the ability to have a link to the ordinances for whichever commission they're looking at going towards, so that they look at that and they read it, along with whatever the rules of procedure, governance manual, the things that apply to them, social media ethics that apply to them, and have them say that they have read those. So initials, like a DocuSign type of initials, because I think we want to try to educate them versus it being like do you have the right answer to that question? I think we want to encourage people to apply, to share their experience, but not have the application process, whether it's the physical form or the interview process, be so daunting that we lose volunteers. So those would be my cautions. And then, Councilmember Kennedy, you talked a little bit about wanting to see or hear the information that the mayor gets. And my question is, what is your vision there? Like, how do you feel like we would be able to see or hear what she hears, the information that she gets?
Oh, good question. It established a uniformity between the mayor's office and the council of working together on this. We don't have two separate wings going off on this thing. That if there's stock questions that the mayor answers each individual, and we see the answers to those, it puts us on the same level to go, okay, this is where the reasoning comes from, this is where the logic comes from. It makes it very simple to look at this and go, okay, we see where we're going here, we see where we're coming from.
Ask a follow-up.
Yeah.
Instead of having to,
Councilmember Kurtz.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So would you have her like taking notes then during the meeting, or like what would that look like so that if you're saying see, I envision seeing, like being able to read what she said. Like, is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yes, yeah, because if there was 5 questions, whatever it is, and they answer that, that could be recorded and supplied to us. Use the example. I look at the application. What I have in the application is a name and 3 references who I have no idea who these people are. What is prompted, to go back a ways, what's prompted this is that we didn't have the sufficient information in the past, which created tremendous turmoil. It cost the city a lot of time, effort, and money. And the simplistic thing was this: if we were on the same page at that time, we would not have gone as long as we did without an administrator and have the costs and frustration from the council and the mayor's office to try to resolve this. So I think that's why we're here today. It's unfortunate we've had to take this long to get here, but it's very difficult for me to look at an application where I have no idea this individual. It's only been recently we've been able to ask somebody the question that is here and not feel that we're doing the best for our citizens.
I'll just jump in. I have a little bit of an apprehension about this idea, not because I don't want that information, but because I think it's a violation of our separation of powers. And what I mean by that is that, you know, look, for better or worse, the mayor is elected to make executive appointments. And so no matter who he or she may select, they make the appointment, and then we have the authority as the legislative body to approve or reject the appointment. You know, I liken it to what happens at the state level and the federal level as well, where the president or the governor will make an appointment, send that appointment to the legislative body. But sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily have all the reasons why or all the answers or all the questions answered about why the governor or the executive chose that particular person. So as much as I would love to see more information and some of the questions that the mayor asked, I have a little bit of heartburn about putting that into or making that a requirement to be passed on to the council. Those are just my initial thoughts about that. Councilmember Kurtz.
I agree with that. And I think what I'm hearing in some of the discussion too is also more about the actual process maybe versus the application, and how we can ensure that we are being consistent from the mayor to us in how we're evaluating the candidates. And so I want to talk, I think we need to figure out if we're going to do anything different with the application itself. But then also, Mayor Pro Tem, you had some suggestions about the process itself, and so did I. And I think that was what I thought we were going to be talking a little bit about tonight, as well as seeing if any of those things are things that we want to be including and adding to our rules of procedure.
Councilmember Spencer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've only been on the council for a few years. I think in the beginning, it was mostly just it was just a formality, and I still feel like it mostly is that. In more recent appointments, we've had the opportunity to have the individual come up and kind of share a little bit about themselves and have a chance for us to ask questions. But to Mayor Pro Tem's point, I think if we aren't going to have that information, those questions that the mayor asked that individual to have a deeper understanding of what took place in that interview, then we probably just need to take that process more seriously on our end and actually dig in and ask some serious questions when it comes time for us to confirm that appointment.
Councilmember Van Orman.
Having sat on both sides of the dais, I can see where I love the idea of putting a link on the actual application for the ordinance for the particular commission. I think that helps out immensely, especially for those that are applying for that position. And as for the process between the mayor and the interview process, I can relate that you want the best person for the job. And hopefully during that interview process, that's what's happening. That's why we come here and we get to go ahead and say yay or nay and ask the questions. I thought that the questions that we were submitting were going to be more of questions that we can answer. So we're asking the same questions to all the applicants. Could have been wrong on that one, but I didn't think that we were going to have that in the actual application. I thought that was going to be something that we could ask as city council members and be consistent on those questions.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, that's kind of what my impression was too. But as far as the mayor, doing a recorded interview ahead of time or whatever, these people are volunteers. So I don't think, you want to make it too daunting so that they're just like, well, I don't think I want to do this. So they're not getting paid. So I think we need to be aware of that.
Councilmember Dunn.
Wendy, your point, it resonates with me. These questions are better. The questions that were presented for consideration are better presented in person, in my opinion, than as part of an application process. So, I am not hesitant to ask those questions if that's what I really needed to know.
Councilmember Kennedy.
What I'm hearing, and I agree with to some degree, but one of the concerns, and we talked about this a few meetings ago, is that we don't have situations where we can have these applicants be here to answer these questions. So think about what we're saying. If we're going to hold these questions, so when they're here, if they can't attend, what do? Postpone the appointment? That's ludicrous. I think we have to have some leeway there. Is that not put them on the spot as you have to be here to answer the specific question. I think it's great if they come here to tell us a little bit about themselves, but to sit here and to be grilled on that, I think it becomes a waste of our time to get appointment recommendation, and we're going to approve it that night, instead of be based on questions we want to ask the candidate, then maybe we're not satisfied with those questions at that point. What does that mean? That we have to delay the process? No, we should not.
Councilmember Spencer, and then we'll come back to Councilmember.
Thank you. And yeah, just from my experience from being appointed to the council, it was done differently both ways. And I had watched a few other, times, and they were done differently pretty much every time. So I think it would be nice if we could formalize some sort of process. If we decided we wanted to have, 3 to 5 questions, and whether that's something that the mayor or the mayor pro tem submits those questions to them while they're at the meeting, and it's just the same questions every time, and it just allows us to get that candidate to open up a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about why. Because as we read through these, it's mostly just trying to help us understand who they are, because the application itself is really just facts. It doesn't really tell us anything about them or why they're
passionate about a particular commission or board.
Councilmember Kurtz and then back to Councilmember Ball.
Two things. What I feel like I'm hearing is that we're gonna potentially interview the candidates. We're gonna be asking them questions. And I don't know if that's what we want to do. So I feel like what we're supposed to be doing is appointing them. And I feel like we should be able to ask them questions. But I worry about getting into basically a second interview for this and whether that's the road we want to go down. With the questions that we've pondered or any other questions that we might think about, if you guys can put yourselves in the shoes of someone applying for a board or commission, do you think you would give a better, more real answer if you had some time to think about it and type it out, or here in front of us, being able to answer those questions? And so I want to make sure that we're not having gotcha moments with people who are applying, and that we're actually getting a real sense of who people are and whether we should be doing that where they have a chance to think about what they want to say versus sort of being put on the spot in a second interview here with elected officials. It might feel pretty intimidating to some folks. So think about that a little bit.
Councilmember Ball.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't make sense to ask the same three questions to what you said, because it's going to depend on the commission they're on, you know. I mean, if they're applying for the CEC, you're going to want to ask questions more about how they interact with people, and, you know, if they're extroverts and personable, but, you know, that doesn't really apply to planning, you know, the planning commission, for example. So I don't know, what I kind of thought we could just do more of, like, let's say there's somebody we're talking to up there, and just kind of free form, you know, depending on what their personality is and what commission they're running for.
One of the things that I was just going to mention, and obviously this is this is not the United States Senate by any means, but I mean, look, there's a confirmation process that happens in a legislature or in the Congress, where this person that's been nominated comes up, sits there, and answers questions. And every person who's on this side of the dais gets to ask a question, or gets a certain amount of time to ask the questions. And those questions could be submitted ahead of time so that they're not put on the spot. But, you know, I on the one hand, I kind of feel the same way. I don't want to make it so that it's so intimidating that they don't want to apply. On the other hand, you know, if they're going to be part of a commission or a board, they're going to be giving likely some quarterly update to us at one point or another. They're going to be standing at that podium, giving us a 5-minute update on what their commission or board is working on. So is it too much to ask, I guess, for them, if they want to be on the board or a commission that they're applying for, to come and answer some questions from the council? I don't know that it is. Councilmember Kennedy, and then
I want to make sure that everybody understands me when I say that I don't feel that should be part of the process. So we expect somebody who's volunteering to come to this body and stand here and be asked questions and stuff. I think that's a little more intimidating than what we're asking these folks. It's strictly volunteerism that we're looking at. We look at their resumes, and we have very impressive people come forward with a lot of experience and stuff. So I just don't support the idea to try to tie into, after they've gone through an interview with the mayor, to suddenly put them to the same questions or any additional questions here. I think it'd be great if they show up, they tell us who they are, a little bit of their background. We say, hey, congratulations, we're happy that you stepped forward on it. I don't see this as brain surgery. I think it's just simplistic of whatever the questions the mayor is asking, the mayor's office, that we know what those questions are, and we know the answers. Then it makes it very simple for me to make a decision.
Councilmember Kurtz.
So I wonder if we could leave ourselves the opportunity to ask questions. And if we have a specific question for a specific candidate, maybe like you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem, by a certain time before the meeting, give those questions to Mark so that, or whoever, I guess, whatever the process would be, to get those to the candidate. So they could have the question ahead of time if we had one, but it doesn't lock us into having to have specific questions that we would ask. I think about a couple of the candidates that we've had recently. And based on what they said, I had questions that I was more interested in hearing. But I feel like if we lock ourselves into a certain number, or if we're too prescriptive, we won't have the ability to ask other questions that may be candidate specific and board specific to see.
I'll just throw out one, playing devil's advocate on that. Is it unfair if we ask some candidates questions and not others? I'm just it's just a generic question, not necessarily expecting a response. Councilmember Ball.
I think it would depend on what they say in their original application.
Yeah.
You know?
Councilmember Dunn.
No, I think it's actually relevant and useful to be able to divert a question if it comes up through an interview process.
Councilmember Spencer.
Thank you. I mean, I think we're talking about, I think we're kind of going around in circles. I think we need to decide whether we want to take part in having some portion of interviewing these candidates. It sounds like maybe there's not necessarily an appetite for that unless, you know, a question comes up. I do like the idea of, you know, even if it was just recorded, that we know what questions the mayor asked the individual. And, you know, I don't know from a standpoint of capturing those answers, I'm not sure what that looks like exactly. I feel like the other issue at hand is what the application itself looks like, whether we could turn that more into rather just a gathering of facts and updating a few of the sections to get more into who they are as a person, so that we can have a better idea there. But yeah, I agree with Councilman Kennedy that the tricky thing is they may not have the availability to be here on that night. I guess my concern really is it's just gonna go backwards to where it was, you know, when I first got onto the council, where it was just, okay, well, there's 3 appointments tonight and, you know, all in favor, say aye. So.
Any other thoughts? So I'm wondering if what we should do here is kind of go through these ideas one by one. And if someone wants to make a motion on these different ideas, they can, and then we could vote on each of them. And then Mark, we could bring it back as if we need to, as like a resolution or an ordinance or something. I'm not sure exactly which bucket it would fall into, but, or maybe it's just a governance.
Yeah, I would
manual.
propose putting it in the governance.
Yeah.
manual. Can I ask a question before you, when you say the ideas, are you referring to the 10 ideas that you previously?
Well, not all of them. I mean, here's the ones that I wrote down just based on our conversation. Whether the council should have access to the mayor's interview,
Okay.
either transcript or video. Whether we should add questions to the written portion of the survey. Whether we should add a link, which was Councilmember Kurtz's idea, to the ordinances governing that committee on the written survey. Whether we should require them to be here in person to potentially ask questions when they are nominated officially, or when they are up for confirmation. And what were the other ones? Felt like there was 1 or 2 others.
Whether we would do questions and what that process would look like.
Questions in person, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you go through that, in that process, can I make a suggestion about the second item that you mentioned, which is the application itself?
Yeah.
So if you remember back to one of the earlier versions of the conversation, there was at some point a proposal where, or an idea, call it an idea, where there would be like an appendix to the application with a questionnaire. If I might suggest on the application, and the reason I'm focusing this on the application is because even if that includes putting links on it to documents that we would later have verification of read and maybe understand. We can do that now. We can change that today, right? And so if I might suggest on the application itself, just changing the tone of the last question on it, which is currently worded, why are you interested in serving on this commission or advisory board? Everything prior to that is essentially an education experience fact type of a question. But if you were maybe to split that into two questions, one of which is what is your personal vision for the city of Liberty Lake? And then on this particular board or commission, how would you propose to pursue that vision in your appointed role? That would give you a bunch of information to follow up and ask a predetermined slate of questions or ad hoc it on the night based on what's happened before or the presence or not of the applicant. Generally speaking, this application is not better, fundamentally better or worse than other applications from around the state with respect to boards or commission applications. So we're not talking about, oh, we've just got a horrible application. I think if you split the last question into those two questions, you would get information that you could use in a valuable way to then follow up and ask any other questions you may want to ask.
Okay. Councilmember Kurtz?
I like that idea.
Sounds great.
Okay. So,
Comment.
yes, Councilmember Kennedy?
I guess I have a challenge with part of that, Mark, in the sense that because we have different commissions, somebody who's applying to a planning commission, you don't really get the training in that until you're on the commission. That's a very extensive and a very important commission for here. Somebody on the library is going to be focused on the library. And I think somebody for Parks and Arts is going to be focused on that. So to suddenly, I think it's very intimidating to ask somebody on the planning commission, how do you foresee this is going to increase the benefit of the city? I think people will look at that and say, I just wanted to volunteer. I'm somewhat intimidated, so I think I don't want to volunteer on this. I just am concerned we make this so difficult that it's going to affect people wanting to come forward.
Any other thoughts on that? All right, well, I added that to the list here, so we can go through these one by one and just yay or nay it here. So does Mike or Jed, I know you were speaking on this one in particular, do you want to make a motion and speak to the getting a transcript of the mayor's interview or the video, having it be recorded?
Is this necessary for a motion on something like that?
Well, depends on what you're looking for. If you want it officially adopted.
I would be in favor of that. Once again, looking for the uniformity when it comes to what are the question. Are we hearing the same question, the same, and what the answer is?
Okay.
I'd defer to Mark. What's the feasibility of doing either? I mean, I don't want to make this, this long cumbersome process.
Sure. So think about it in the context of whether you have either interviewed someone for a position that you're hiring or ever been on an interview for a job that you want. We would either have to record all of those with some kind of video, audio capture, or we would have to scribe all of those questions and answers. The first one isn't all that difficult, but it would force us into almost an impersonal interview process, which isn't preferred. Or we would have to have a scribe, and it could be the person in the interview, but you would have to take down all of those answers, and that's somewhat cumbersome.
So would you like to make a motion on that, Mike or Jed? On that particular piece? No? Okay. Adding new written questions to the survey. So this could go in two ways. This could be a whole host of new questions that we add on there, or it could just be the changes to the one that Mark suggested on the last one. We have consensus around the dice to do that. Yeah, Councilmember Bay.
Mark, could you restate the question suggestions that you had for the last one, please?
Maybe. So, so currently the one question that I would propose making two questions is, why are you interested in serving on this commission or advisory board? So I would propose asking a question, what is your personal vision for the city of Liberty Lake? And then the follow-up would be, and we could go back and look at the original stating of this, but it would be something to the effect of how would you propose to pursue that vision by serving in your appointed role on this board or commission?
I'm going to move that the last question be refashioned into two parts. A, what is your personal vision for Liberty Lake? And B, how would your appointment to this commission allow you to live out or express that vision?
Okay,
Second.
second by Councilmember Kurtz. Discussion. I'm just gonna add one thing. I like this idea. I do think that this, by doing it this way, if we're not gonna put any other questions on there, we do need to be prepared to do more questions in my belief. I don't know that it answers every single question that I might have about a candidate. So I would still like the opportunity to be able to have them here in person and ask questions if I had them. But I do like the idea of adding that to the survey. Any other, or the application, I should be saying. Councilmember Ball?
So just to be clear, so we'd still have that question on why are you interested in serving on this commission advisory board?
I would propose the two questions replace that question.
Okay, okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, you've all heard the motion, so I won't repeat it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes 7-0. Okay, so we did that one. Requiring them to be here in person the night that they are up for confirmation. Councilmember Van Orman.
I'm wondering if there's any way that in lieu of someone not being able to come, having them be able to tape something and have that actually being shown. Something about body language does a lot in an interview.
I'm looking for David. Feasible, a pre-recorded message? We're talking specifically about a recorded message, but feasible? Yes.
That, like I said, body language is great. It helps out with the end results. The end result is you want to be able to say, okay, I'm approving you.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Well, I have questions about that because I think we talked about this last time, like the idea of I'm applying for the Parks and Arts Commission and I've got to figure out to record something and how to
Maybe it's
get it there.
Maybe it's the questions that we would normally have that we've got 6 of them right here.
Well, we're sort of talking, if I can go back and forth, about whether we're going to do these questions or whether we're going to leave it open to have a little bit more of a free flowing, if you had questions when we get here. So I would hesitate to require somebody to be here. Like I would like them to be here if they can be here. And I would also hesitate to require them to do like a video. I don't know that I love that idea.
Councilmember Spencer, and then I'll come to Councilmember Kennedy.
I think we can simply make it an option, give them the option if they absolutely, you know, they've got something every Tuesday night, they can't ever be here. Give them the option to, you know, record a quick video with David on their way out the door with, you know, their interview with the mayor or whatever. Just something quick that if they would like to do that, just knowing that if we don't have enough information, they may not get confirmed.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Once again, I'm not in favor of requiring them to be here. If they can be here and they want to speak, I think that is great. My challenge is if we make that part of the requirement that they do their best effort to be here, that means what we're relying on is part of their comments to make our final decisions. And I don't think that's fair to that individual on it. And also with our commissions and stuff, we'll have openings that go for a long period of time because we can't get people to fill them. And then when we do get it, we have one individual, let's say, one applicant, which becomes a shoo-in. The challenge would be is if we make it part of that they need to be here and we don't feel that that's being fulfilled, then we're not going to approve them that night. And now we're going to be waiting another 2 weeks to hopefully they can be here. And in the meantime, the committee is sitting over here trying to do their job.
Councilmember Kurtz?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Kennedy and I would like them to be here if they can, but I don't want it to delay the ability of the commission to do its work. And so I'm wondering if we can compromise on the idea that we would like them to be here if they can. And if we had questions that we really felt like we really wanted to ask them, I think that would be the point where you could maybe hold a commission appointment, but I don't think it should be if you're never here, you don't get appointed because we're always going to have questions. I hope what I'm saying makes sense.
Anybody else? Okay, so I think we have the answer to that one. But correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like the answer is no, correct? Okay. The link to the ordinances governing the committees on the application. Councilmember Spencer.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer, and I think we probably ought to update the application in such a way that points them to that and says, you know, please go out here and read this, and then perhaps we add a question, but you know, do you have any questions or you know, something to where they can kind of, it's not necessarily a quiz, but simply show that they understand what they're getting into.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to add a link to the ordinances governing the committee that they're applying for to the application.
Second.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Can we also add, once it's done, the governance, whichever part of the social media and ethics policy applies to them as well? So anything that would, any of our ordinances that would apply to them as representatives of the city to that.
As applicable.
Yeah. And those would be for anybody who's on applying for a board, just to make sure that they understand that. Sean, should I be making a amendment?
I mean, you can just make a second motion, vote on the one you had, and then put the other one that. That's probably the easiest way to do it. For clarity purposes.
Okay. So let's vote on the first one, which is linked to the ordinance governing the committee on the application. Any other discussion about that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, 7-0. All right, Annie.
And then I'd like to make a motion that adding to the application will also be a link to the social media and ethics ordinance once it's developed, and then, or as it is now, and the rules of procedure and or the governance manual when those are applicable.
All second. Discussion. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's 7-0 as well. We already touched on that one. Okay, any others that we want to tackle? We've got the 2 questions added to the end and the links essentially is what we've come up with. Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Kennedy.
I feel it's important, along with that link or make it separate, that very simple explanation goes to each of these applicants of what our form of government is. We have administration, we have legislative, and what the responsibilities are. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. Many times I refer to this right here. That capitalizes, I think, quite well what our government is. So why I base that on, so I've had conversations with 2 individuals I can remember when they have applied or being involved that weren't totally aware of what our form of government is and who makes the decisions and stuff and why it's the citizens have said, this is what we want. I think that would be advantageous to include that.
Okay, any other discussion? Do you want to make an official motion on that? Or do you want to just verbalize it?
Question, can that be added to what we just voted on? Because I think that's part of it.
Can I clarify
Yeah.
that part about it, about the form of government is in the governance manual. So if they do read that and their part on the committees and appointments process, that part is in there.
Thank you, Council, for pointing that out. I agree. I don't want to make it so cumbersome that they feel they have to read a tremendous amount. If it was a one paragraph or two, or someone can look at this and go, okay, I understand how this works. So it doesn't become so involved for them to make a decision they want to volunteer or not.
Okay, anything else? Yes, Councilmember Kurtz.
So for the process itself, is there anything else that we need to talk about with that when I'm thinking about for like the governance manual and how we're gonna do it? Because Mayor Pro Tem, you had some things that you were looking at, and I don't know if we've hit all those because I don't have them in front of me. And then I had what was sort of the proposed language for the governance manual that's based on how we have done it, but then also how other cities have done it. So I don't know at what point we want to go through that or if we're prepared to do that tonight as part of this workshop.
I'll just mention one of the other one, well, there were two. One was renominations, the timeline. And then the second one, I'm going off of memory here, is voice votes. And so, and there are two things here. One, on the renomination, making sure that there's adequate time. And then two, the voice votes item was specific to two different issues. The first is that until we get some sort of board in here where people know exactly how everyone's voting, I think it's only fair, especially for the folks who are watching online, to hear the votes as opposed to everyone just, going like this. So those were the reasons why I brought up those two things. Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, we've covered everything else that was on here. Comments, questions, Councilmember Van Orman?
Can you reiterate what you meant as far as the time of reaffirming or
Basically, the question was whether there should be a time for reappointment. Whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, I don't know the answer. It's just the question of whether if in a circumstance where a candidate is not approved, can they be reappointed in the next meeting? So, yes, Councilmember Kennedy.
I think it's strictly up to the council. If there's one meeting that they say no, and for some reason they want to put it back on the agenda, and we are the ones who decide it's going to be on the agenda, I feel we have the right to be able to vote on it again. Because if somebody says, well, I want to bring it the third time, if this council decides they want to, then I think we have the power, majority rules. I don't think this council will do that. I think common sense will overpower us on it, but I'm not in favor to suddenly restrict, but you can't apply for another whatever.
Any other thoughts on that one? Okay, the other one was whether we should change the way we vote until we have some sort of mechanism to have it on the screen. And keep in mind that part of the reason I brought this up is because, we do this, if we have an appointment for an open council position, we go one by one when we do that. So, yeah, Councilmember.
My recommendation would be is that we're never going to get something in our lifetime to show what we're voting on.
We had one a couple of years ago.
We've been trying for a long period of time. Put in there that all of those are recorded votes. If they're recorded votes, it'll be in the minutes what the vote was. The citizens will be able to see that.
It's already recorded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's recorded where it will say majority. majority rules that were passed 5-7 or 6-7 or 7-7. It doesn't specifically say how they're voting for.
I
And the
think
whole
it
idea of
does.
having lights is the benefit to see how we as council members are voting.
Right.
It doesn't specifically say that in our.
I'm pretty, Kelsey, do you want to?
Typically in the minutes, if it's unanimous, I just state that. If it's anything other than that, I'll list out who votes in favor and who votes opposed.
Thank you.
All right, those were the only other two. Councilmember Kurtz?
So the other piece of it, and again, I don't know when we would have another workshop, but the document that I sent that was the that would go in the governance manual, is that possible to bring up? So that we can look at that to see if there's anything people want to change?
We certainly can, yes.
And is that what the council wants to do? I guess that's the other question.
So explain that to me one more time.
So I had sent a document that was what was in the proposed governance manual.
Right.
So and some of these things are things we're talking about right now, and some of the things we haven't addressed. So we can either go through that in our committee and bring that forward later, or we can go through that process now, and it will just be a thing that the committee doesn't have to do when we do the governance manual, and we won't have to do it when we do the governance manual either. We will have that work done.
What is the appetite of the council?
Question being, how does it address now?
Well, we don't have it we don't have a governance manual now.
Yeah, that's my point, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that maybe would be best advantageous we do it in the next meeting? And I'm not really sure about what I just said. I don't want to delay something we could accomplish now. But it would, this be a effective discussion tonight.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? So I was just assuming that the plan was going to be, once the draft of the governance manual is done, we were just going to kind of go through it section by section, right? So I guess the question that we are discussing right now is whether we want to wait to cover this particular topic until we go through it section by section, or whether we want to try to tackle this tonight as we are discussing the process, right?
Kind of like, well, everything's fresh in everybody's mind, because
Yeah.
I think that there's a good chunk of it that we've already actually talked about. And then if we sort of have an understanding of how we're going to do things, we can begin to operationalize that until the governance manual hopefully is done and ratified by everybody.
Just looking at our agenda here. I mean, it seems to me we don't have a ton left on the agenda if we want to try to tackle a little bit of it tonight, but that's up to the council.
I'd ask that it be as most related to the appointment process as possible. Sections you think that are most related to that.
So can we pull that up?
Did you just want to do it verbally, Annie? I mean,
Let's see here. Let me get it real quick.
okay.
Anybody want to tell a joke, sing a song, something?
So for those watching online, we're just waiting to put up the section of the proposed governance manual that deals with this particular issue of city appointments.
Well, I was just looking for that. This is April Fool's, so I assume we're not going to get to the end and say to the public, surprise.
Not gonna
Hopefully
do it.
not.
Evan, what's your email address?
Is this what's labeled as chapter 23?
I think so. Boards and commissions.
Okay. Evan, it's on its way. Yes, I just sent it to you. How many city officials does it take to run a meeting comes to mind is the proposed joke.
I don't think you want the answer.
You know, that's, no.
Speaking of, do you know how many council members there are in Missoula?
I
Is
don't.
this a dad joke?
No, it's not.
Oh.
17.
Wow.
What?
They have a city that's about 100,000 and they have 17 council members.
Are they districted?
For real?
Yeah.
Is that because of a high unemployment rate, maybe?
I don't know.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything that high. That's amazing.
All right, Councilmember Kurtz, you want to walk us through this?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
So the first part of it talks a little bit about, hang on, I wish I had a mouse. The purpose and application. So this is sort of lined out in the way that the governance manual is. So talking a little bit about that it applies to all the advisory boards, that this article governs the advisory boards unless it's provided by ordinance or resolution of the city council or by state law. So it's talking about boards, committees, commissions created by the city council to give advice on subjects and perform some other function as prescribed by the city council. Talks also about the ability for us to have task force, informal committees, work groups, et cetera, for short periods of time for specific tasks. So the next paragraph talks a little bit about how we want to encourage citizen interests in affairs of the city, and how they are an important avenue to help create effective and equitable policies. So the next part talks a little bit about formation of advisory boards. So all of them are established by our municipal code. And these are the ones that we have. We also have a tree board. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that, which is not on here. So scope of work, each of them has an ordinance essentially that establishes their work and function, and that'll be re-examined by us to determine whether it's effective. And that we are the ones, the city council determines what the advisory boards do by motion or resolution. So the appointment process, this is our current process. The mayor appoints the boards and commissioners. And then the city clerk is responsible for recruiting applicants for vacancies, where it's advertised. And there'll be an appendix to the governance manual. But essentially all candidates submitted an application on the city's website to be eligible. And then if they want to seek reappointment, they need to be submit an application. So any questions on the very first part of that? Okay. Publication process. So I'm not totally sure that this aligns with how things are done currently. This is what some other cities do. So if there's an end of term vacancy, we want to have it advertised for 2 weeks on all city communication channels. Inviting applicants to apply if we know a vacancy coming up, and then making sure that unscheduled vacancies are filled as soon as practically possible. So the qualifications and application. So there's some things in here that might be something that we haven't talked about before, and some that we have. Let's see, we want to have a consistent policy and decision-making. And then the number of members and any specific qualification are in the code. So here's a little bit about what could be our policy if this is something that fits with what you guys want to do. So residency requirements are in each of the ordinances. And then there'll also be a membership and qualification matrix that's in the rest of the governance manual. So some of the boards and commissions have different sectional composition. So like the community engagement one has one from each quadrant of the city, type of a thing. We want to have a balance of community representation and then not appointing multiple members from the same family or household to a single board or commission, to avoid a conflict of interest. And then we won't appoint members of our own families to boards or commissions. So that would be the first two. Any questions about those or any comments? Another one of our proposed potential policies would be attempting occupation, attempting to maintain a broad mix of occupational backgrounds on boards and commissions. Some knowledge of the municipal and planning process. So when we're ranking equally qualified applicants, we would consider background experience and knowledge of the municipal process appropriate to the position. So some of that would be the mayor in our interview process, but say perhaps we had two people that were up for an appointment for something, we want to make sure that we're ranking them based on some of their background experience if they're otherwise equally experienced. And I think this gets to some of the questions that we have on our application, the contributive potential. So we want to evaluate them about some of the qualifications could be ability to communicate, their desire to perform public service, ability to express ideas, concepts, or philosophies, desire to participate in the decision-making process. So I think some of those questions, some of those things would come out in the questions that we have. And then I think we also have a question that is a little bit focused on their leadership potential. So if they are a part of a board or a commission, they could be called upon to serve as a chair. So we will also be thinking about their leadership abilities. So we've asked that question on the application as well, and we can ask those questions in person if we feel like it, regarding their leadership experience, participation in community services, and then their expressed interest. So we don't want to have, we do this already, or trying to move towards that, but this would formalize that, not appointing person to serve as members of more than one board or commission at the same time, but that they can, if they want to move to a different commission, they would need to resign their current position that they're in. So that was a lot of words, but any questions or objections so far?
Looks good.
I believe it's a lot to look at to try to make a decision tonight. Can you go back to the other page? Just prior to this one. Such as, you know, what we're doing is like number 4. Contributed potential, like trying to read the small print. Council will evaluate. I mean, we're going to get into where we're starting to evaluate each of these volunteers. And also if they're going to be a takeover as chair, that the council is going to get involved in something like that. Let the committee decide among themselves what they want to be able to have chair. So.
And I think that I'm not saying that the council would do that, but these are the things we'd be looking for when we are looking at candidates through their application process, through the questions that we already asked them. So we wouldn't be deciding who the chair is. We're looking, do they have some leadership potential in their answers, either in the application or in their the questions that they're asked here, that would demonstrate some of that. So we get down to the council confirmation of appointment, which is kind of what we've been talking about tonight, which is I think why I wanted to talk about this as well. So this says something I think a little bit different than what we do now, but that they will be introduced to council at a regular meeting, which is what we would do with them. And the applications would be provided to them. Some cities do this in a more formal way that's 10 days prior to a regular meeting. I don't know if we want to put that in there or be silent on that. This gets to another point that we had tonight. The candidates should, not shall, be in attendance at the meeting to stand for any questions from the council. And then giving us a little bit of guidance on some of the questions and the framework for what we should be thinking about. Questions from the council should focus on the guidelines outlined above, and regarding and the ones regarding reappointment to ensure objectivity. We want to make sure that we're objective in whether they should be a part of the boards or commissions. We want to make sure our questions are neutral and they don't discourage community members from participating as volunteers. And then they would start serving once they are appointed. So the highlights here, some cities do it on a consent agenda. I feel like we have wanted to avoid that and go more towards having it on the general business, which I support as well. And then some language in here about what happens if we fail to confirm a candidate, that the mayor can present additional candidates until such time as there's a confirmation. And then if there is not a confirmation, then we could repost the vacancy.
Can I ask one quick question on this one? It comes back to a suggestion that Councilmember Kennedy had, and that is whether the council should know not who, but how many applicants there were for any particular position. So obviously, if there's only one, then we'll know that. But I mean, if we've got a huge number of people who all of a sudden want to serve on the planning commission or something, that'd be, I think, good information for the council to know.
And I like that idea too. I think that's one of the things that we could write in here if that's what people would like. I'm seeing some nodding heads there. There's different ways that cities make decisions about a council member. So this one talks about notifying by email. That's why it's highlighted. It's not what we do, but this is what some other cities do. And then the clerk notifies the chairperson or staff liaison. So there's some language in here about appointment terms. So it basically needs to follow state law. And then I think most of them are for 3 years. But if there's any edits there, we can do that as well. This language says that when their member's term expires, they may hold over and continue to serve until there's a new successor. And then it talks a little bit about vacancies here for an unexpired term. So the next one, the reappointment criteria, gets a little bit at what Mayor Pro Tem you were talking about earlier. And I don't know if these things line up or not, but there will be a staff liaison, which there already is for the boards and commissions. And then the staff liaison would support giving the mayor information about whether to request reappointment. So these are some of the topics that would be considered, whether they attend meetings, whether they understand the board or commission function, positive leadership, effectiveness, and contributions during their past term, and then objectivity. And I think that gets at some of the concerns that people on the dais have had about people serving on the boards too, is just having us have the ability to have some consistent and objective ways to ensure that people who are continuing are fulfilling the mission of the commission that they're on. So this would be different. And something for us to talk about. The reappointment shall occur for members who are in good standing and desire to continue to serve their community. And then neither the mayor nor the council denying reappointment for disagreement with a recommendation of the board or its members. So these things are coming out of some other cities' reappointment criteria. And just wondering if anybody has any concerns or thoughts on the reappointment process.
Thoughts on this? I'll just say, my only concern about that is that I feel like that last sentence in the reappointment one, neither the mayor nor the council shall deny reappointment. I feel like that's kind of subjective as in terms of what could be described as a disagreement or a recommendation of the board or its members. So that's my only hesitation there. If we were going to put something like that in there, at least for me, I'd want a little more definition in terms of what that means.
Okay. If you have any thoughts about what would make that hit more what you're wanting to say.
I don't know.
And it doesn't have to be right now, but
Yeah.
like think about it and send those to me, and so we can look at making sure that it does meet what the council wants to have. Because we can edit that and get that back to everybody too, so. Resignations, this just talks about them. If they can't complete their term, they need to notify the city clerk and the staff liaison. And then we'll go through the process of reposting the position. Cause for dismissal. So this talks about how a board or commission member would be dismissed from service. So I think all of these are out of RCW. So 3 unexcused absences, personal email to conduct city business. And then, and we have this already, that dismissal of a board member requires a majority vote of the council. And that same line that we would need to adjust a little bit at the end there.
I'm also wondering on this one, whether we want it to simply be a majority. I mean, if we're going to take the extraordinary step, at least in my point of view, of removing someone from a commission, it seems to me it should take a higher threshold. Maybe it's just me.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Are you saying just simple majority?
No, I'm saying above a simple majority.
Majority.
Simple majority.
Okay. Expectations of advisory board members. So we've talked about this in our discussions too, that we want to make sure that the members recognize they're in a critical position to shape and influence board decisions and actions. We want to make sure that they're up to date on issues affecting their board, regular attendance. Let's see, a way a person can forfeit their position on the board as a result of poor attendance. So these are some guidelines, again, that other cities had regarding effective board members. I didn't see anything in here that we're just kind of silent on these things. So making sure that they attend and are well prepared, that serving the public interest is the top priority. They have to operate in an open and public manner, be knowledgeable about the legislative process, examine all evidence before making a judgment, communicate well and participate in group discussions. Remain aware that the authority to act is granted to the board as a whole, not to individual members. Be willing to work with the group, recognizing compromise, ensuring that personal feelings or biases towards fellow members or board members or staff don't impede their ability to make fair and unbiased decisions. Positively promote the mission, vision, and values of the city and the board. Exemplify the city's commitment to fostering an inclusive culture, and treat every individual with respect, courtesy, thoughtfulness, etc. Any concerns about expectations of advisory board members?
I think it's great to have it stated.
So this gets into just sort of detail-y stuff about the chair and the vice chair. And these are things that are in their ordinance already, that they need to identify a chair. This identifies what the chair will do, what the vice chair will do, that they have to have a quorum for transacting business. Conflicts of interest. These all line up with our ethics policy and RCW. Liaisons and representatives. So there's a staff liaison assigned to each of the boards and commissions. So they help support the board itself. There's records and minutes of every meeting, and the meetings will be published by following OPMA. Training for OPMA needs to be completed within 90 days of assuming duties. Oral and public comment at each of their regular meetings. Subcommittees, they can have subcommittees as long as they follow OPMA. Communications with City Council, I think this is something that we have expressed an interest in as well. Let's see. So communication, in here it says in yellow, conveyed by the staff liaison, but I think our practice has been that we do have people, usually the chair, come to our meetings and give us information, which I think it has worked fine unless anybody has any concern. And so I think we could change that to be either the the chair or a staff liaison, so we have some flexibility there if that fits with what you guys would like to do. That we aren't supposed to attempt to persuade or influence an advisory board member. It says in here, and I feel like we do this already, that council members should not attend meetings in person in order to not unduly influence advisory board deliberations. So any thoughts or questions up to this point?
Excuse me, I don't believe we have that anywhere in our, with the city council now, to say that they should not or could not attend these meetings.
Yeah, I don't think we do, but I feel like it's informally been how we've operated. So this would be writing it down about if that's what we want to do or not.
That is one particular item would not be in favor of, because even through AWC training and stuff, they recommend that it's great to have, it's important at times to have a council member attend one of those, not necessarily get involved in conversation or ask for special meetings of those individuals, but that way it allows the commissioners to see the individual who they're dealing with.
One question I did have, Annie, and I'm thinking this probably impacts the planning commission more than anything else is on issues that they're not, forgetting the term here, quasi judicial, whether there's anything in here that addresses that, or whether there should be.
Yes, I don't know that there's anything in this specific section, but there is information in the governance manual about quasi judicial matters. But if we need to have something in here that references it in the governance manual, we can do that as well. Let's see, so communications with the public. This talks about the staff liaison being the city voice. And then, and I don't know if, I think some of these things I feel like we need to get a little bit of input from how things are working now regarding communications with the public before we decide, because if this is not how it's currently done and it's working how it currently is, then I think that this language could be adjusted as well. Communication with other advisory board members. This kind of gets at the OPMA piece again. So that we're not having a quorum of people meeting in between and talks about serial meetings here. So just wanting to make sure people follow that. Reports to council. In order to better engage with boards and commissions, council may meet with them in joint sessions. We can pick how often, but up to twice annually. And then they can present updates at council meetings under board and commission reports. And one of the things that the Governance Manual Rules of Procedure Committee has talked about is figuring out how often we should, and I guess we presented this to you guys before about how often the cadence of getting commission reports. And I'm not sure that we have fully, the council hasn't fully decided that yet. And then lobbying efforts, that we shouldn't be lobbying. The boards and commission members should not, because they're not authorized to speak on behalf of the city. They can express their own free individual voice, but they're not a representative of the city if they're doing that. And that they won't be compensated unless there's authorized travel, which needs to be pre-authorized.
Okay, any questions, comments, thoughts?
Great for the preview, and it's aligned to many of the things that we discussed tonight.
Anything else?
Were there any edits or adjustments that you guys are wanting to make as we're bringing this back eventually in the governance manual piece? I wrote down wanting to know how many applicants apply for a position. The 2 sentences in there about a resignation or a disagreement piece. And then the quasi judicial reference.
I think that's all I caught. Councilmember Spencer?
Yeah, I think you've got the term shall occur under that reappointment criteria. I think we should probably change that to may occur.
And this is obviously not the last time we're gonna see this, right?
No.
I mean, so we'll have the chance again, I think, to be able to go through it with a comb if we need to. Anything else? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on now to general business items. I'll make a motion to approve general business items 10A. Yeah.
You weren't here earlier. We took off G.
G, okay, thank you. To approve general business items 10A through F.
Second.
Discussion? Actually, no discussion. Sorry, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes 7-0. Did we move G to? Okay. Next item is general business action items. 10G is what we'll start with. The purchase of the K9 with training. Discussion. Councilmember Ball?
Is Chief still here or?
Yes.
Okay, oh, he might. Hi. So I had a question about the K9 training.
Councilmember Ball, before you continue, do I need to get this on the floor? Do we need to make a motion? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay, so do we have the dog yet?
No,
Well, why are we sending him to training for 6 weeks if he doesn't have the dog? I don't understand that.
because the 15,000 is the purchase of the dog and the handler. So the handler has to go get paired with the dog. You can't purchase a dog and not have a handler. So when you go to K9 training, what K9 handlers like to do is to run a handler with several dogs to pick out. There has to be a union there. It's kind of hard to explain.
Oh,
That's a special bond. Those handlers, that's not, I'm going to Petco and purchasing a dog. I mean, that
no, I
is,
understand that.
I mean, that's a week or so of, working with different dogs to figure out which dog is best for you and which handler is best for the dog too. And so the training includes our handler going down,
Mhm.
working with several dogs and figuring out who the best dog is for him and vice versa to continue that training, and he'll come back with the dog.
Okay, so he does come back with the dog. Okay, so is the 16,000?
16,350.
Yeah, is that include the training and the dog?
There's training, dog, equipment, meals, lodging.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just for the,
The whole shebang.
well, yeah, I was worried it was just for the training and that didn't include the dog.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's this handler has lodging. He feeds the officers when they're down there. He lodges them, he houses them, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
He provides the training. And the 6 weeks is typical for just a patrol dog is 4 weeks. So there's actually 2 trainings here. So there's 4 weeks for a patrol dog, and a patrol dog is your typical, you run, they run after you, they bite you, they drag you in and you go to jail. And then there's 2 weeks for drug dog, narcotics.
Okay.
And that's drug narcotics detection. And so this is 2 different schools. With the dog being cross-trained
Right.
for those 2 purposes.
So the dog will be able to sniff out narcotics as well as chase a bad guy.
The only additional narcotics training that the dog will have to do when it gets back is fentanyl training, and that's completely separate, and that's
Yeah,
left up to each state.
I see.
And in the state of Washington, all narcotics dogs are required to be fentanyl trained now.
Mhm, mhm.
Sounds rough.
Which officer is gonna? be-
Jordan Tuttle.
Oh, I think that's in there. Yeah. And is the dog typically a female or a male?
It depends.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. It depends on, I know this handler has males and females. All of his dogs come from Europe. He flies overseas to get them,
Right.
and he brings them back and he trains them from, when they're
Okay.
small puppies.
Mhm.
And he does have male and females, and it just depends on what
Mm.
the best connection is for the
Yeah.
handler and the best connection is for the dog.
Okay.
Councilmember Kennedy.
How does it determine what breed we're interested in, or does it really come into play?
Well,
I
when
know
we were
Chihuahuas
researching
are on
this,
the list, but-
that's interesting, because when we were researching the K9 program and I was contacting different handlers and It depends on the or on the trainer.
Okay.
This guy gets all of his dogs, and I think they're all, most of them are Malinois. From this, he's been getting those dogs from the same breeder for probably 25, 30 years. This actually is the same gentleman who provided our dogs in Great Falls when I was in Great Falls, Montana, at the police department some years back. And actually Corporal Powers had one of his dogs when he was a canine handler in Great Falls. And so it depends on, the trainer and what their preference is and what they like to train.
What breed did you say? It start with an M? What?
Malinois,
What?
you're gonna make me say it 3 times.
Yes.
I will show you.
Okay, because I've never heard of it. Yeah, okay. we'll have
Yes.
to-
It's a big bad dog. You don't want to get bit.
Okay.
Let's just put it like that.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Chief, yeah, additional question on it. I know that different breeds of dogs are more aggressive than others. Is there a consideration of the city that they're going to, such as dog for downtown Chicago maybe needs a more aggressive dog than something that we would need?
I would have to disagree with you, having worked around dogs in the military and law enforcement. I've seen Chihuahuas more aggressive than canines, and I'm being serious. I've seen what people would consider, your classic German Shepherd. And this is a true story that I didn't even want to work around because he bit so many handlers. And then I've seen the same for a Malinois. I mean, it depends on the dog, the temperament of the dog, the training. I think their lineage, and just all types of factors. But I haven't seen one breed more aggressive than the other. I think it boils down to training, environment, experience too. I know, for example, I've seen dogs be a little more timid when they're in a car accident, which happens in police work. So they're, they'll get in a collision, or especially in a pursuit or something like that. And sometimes it's hard to get those dogs to work again. So I think the same is, when they get into critical incidents. I mean, you've had dogs that are stabbed and shot and they're still working. So, I mean, they're just like a human. They're going to take that experience with them. And it may affect their, it may affect their temperament. But I've never seen, and just in my personal dealings and working around a lot of dogs, one breed that's more aggressive than.
It's really good to know that. Thank you for explaining that.
Well, if there's nothing else that gives us pause, I'll make a motion that we approve the invoice for the canine and training for the handler in the amount not to exceed $16,350.
Second. Second.
Second by Councilmember Kurtz. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
I,
You have
Passes.
to make that so rough.
Passes 7-0. All right, now we're up to general business item 11A. I'll make a motion to approve the kiosk donation from the Liberty Lake Lions Club valued at $1,400.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dunn. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you all.
I will abstain.
Okay,
because
all right,
am
passes
part of the
six,
Lions Club.
thank you, passes 6-0 with Councilmember Van Orman abstaining. Thank you. All right, general business item 11B, make a motion to approve the appointment of Logan Langford to the position 8 on the Community Engagement Commission. Second by Councilmember Kennedy. All right, Logan, you want to come on up and say hello?
Evening, council. I guess introduction. I mean, what I've heard tonight, it sounds like you just want to get to know me. So
We got a bunch of questions.
hey, no, that's hey, I'm in that business. I'm a project manager for a construction firm, so I deal with curveballs all the time. But long story short, come from a small town of about 15,000. Graduated high school, always volunteered, tried being involved in the community, volunteering for baseball, football, basketball, coaching, anything I could. And then went to college for marketing, business marketing, decided that was not really my thing. And then I went to Boise State, where I got a construction management degree with a minor in marketing. So during that time, I had an internship with Lighted Construction here in Spokane. So when I moved up here for the summer, I lived off Barker, and I would always come to visit Liberty Lake. So yeah, every chance I could get, I would go over to Meadowwood, hit a bucket of balls, kind of just hang out in the community, which kind of grew my relationship for the area. So shortly after that, graduated college, got a full-time offer coming back up here. And I've lived in Liberty Lake since 2019. So happy to be a part of it. And this last year, I did a lot of blood donations, a lot of community involvement. This year, I was kind of challenging myself to, what could be next, and had an HOA opportunity. And I kind of wanted to do something more than that, which is when I saw the post about the opening you guys had for your guys' committees. And so I actually applied to, I think there's 2 or 3 of them that had openings. So I kind of just wanted to say, here's my expertise. I'm in construction. I'm an extrovert. I like to get to know people in the public, poke it wherever you see fit. So that's the long and the short of it. And, yeah, if you have questions, feel free to fire them away.
Questions from the council? Yes,
Just,
Councilmember
no,
Ball.
just comment. I'm thrilled to hear you're an extrovert and that you want to be on the CEC. So
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
No, it was funny because during the interview, which lasted 45 minutes to about an hour, I think one of the questions I asked them was, what are you looking for? And I think he said a builder that's an extroverted, that does marketing. Oh, yeah, tech savvy. I think it was tech savvy was the 4th one. So I was like, I think I could check all those boxes for you.
Perfect.
Love the application. Yeah.
Good.
Yes, thank you for all the detail
Thank
that
you,
you put in
Robert.
that. Okay, we've got a motion. All in favor of the appointment of Logan Langford to the Community Engagement Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 7-0. Welcome. Thank you, Logan.
Thanks,
Mayor,
Council.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Before we move on, can I recommend that you take a motion to extend by 10 minutes or so to
Yes,
make sure that you get
thank
through
you.
that? Yeah.
Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting to 10:15 or 9:15. Time.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, that clock.
is totally.
Well,
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful what
Yeah.
you say.
All right, do we have a second?
A second.
All right, Councilmember Ball seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 7-0. Again, thank you all very much. All right, general business item 11C, the lease addendum for the building at 23129 East Mission. Mark, do you want to make any comments on this?
So this is, as you know, we've discussed on numerous occasions, the lease for Legacy Church expires on April 30th. And in the discussion that we had with them, considering their project plan, they were interested in extending the lease. We obviously have been talking about this facility in a number of different capacities for potential future uses by the city. None of those are on the horizon for that 6-month period. So we feel 100% confident that extending the lease for the 6-month period isn't going to interfere with any of those project plans. And thereafter, the period would be a month to month as they plan to transition at some point into their new facility. And that would require a 30-day termination notice on either side once you got past the initial 6-month term.
Okay. Did we already have a motion on this? Someone make a motion? Okay. Mark, quick question for you on that. If through our deliberations about Town Square, if we were to decide to put that building up for sale, is there anything in the lease prevent us from actively marketing it while they're still there?
So the lease adopts the terms of the original agreement. And Sean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head if there is a restriction in there. We can check that and confirm.
I don't think there's anything that would restrict it. The city wouldn't be able to do anything within that 6-month period from the standpoint of, removing the tenant. So if anybody was to purchase it, they would purchase it by accepting the terms of the lease during that time period.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Mark? Councilmember Kennedy?
My assumption is that there's no increase in the rent.
That's correct.
Correct. And what are they paying now on a monthly rate?
6750. But it's a triple net
Right,
arrangement, so they're paying the others as well.
No, it's a good
expenses.
deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the lease addendum for 23129 East Mission.
Second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Ball. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. All right, we are up to item 12, council comments. Any council comments?
I have a question.
Yes,
Does
Councilmember
anybody
Ball.
know, staff or council, how the restaurant's coming along?
So there are active conversations between the Community Development Department and the folks representing Chavalitas. I can't sit here and tell you exactly where they stand with respect to days from opening, but they're making progress. At the next meeting, I can ask Lisa to prepare some information for you that we can include in my city administrator's report if you'd like.
Yeah, it'd be great. So-
Okay.
But I mean, are they in there working, doing stuff or?
They're not in the facility
Mm.
yet. They're still in the process of getting plan approval.
Oh.
But they're making progress on that.
Okay.
And it
That'd
looks
be
like
great.
Kyle's
Oh.
gonna provide some info.
I can tell you they have purchased all of the appliance equipment totaling well over $200,000.
Yeah.
So they've planned it. The install is imminent. So
They what?
the install is imminent, just pending planning approval. So
Have we advanced any of the funds that we've agreed to?
not yet. So
Okay.
we'll get the receipts from them and then you'll see that on an upcoming agenda item at some point.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Any other council comments? All right, hearing none, we have no public hearings or appeals, no resolutions. We do have an ordinance. Ordinance number 308B.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 308 passed by the City Council on December 17th, 2024, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, adopting a budget for the period of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, appropriating funds and establishing salary schedules for established positions.
Okay, this is just a first read. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. All right, hearing none, we will move on to item 16, emergency ordinances. We have none. Upcoming agenda items. Anybody have any that they want to add to the list?
Question / agenda
Yeah.
item.
Councilmember Kurtz.
I think we were gonna practice the 6 PM start date until the 30th of April, if I remember right. And
Correct.
And that's coming up. And so I wanted to see whether we need, what we should do. I think we should add that maybe to the next agenda if we want to keep going with it or not.
Would you propose to add a workshop discussion on that or something else?
Whatever lets us decide if we want to keep doing it or not. It'd
So
probably be a
we-
short workshop.
So we can do that. We can also just put an action item on the,
Yeah, that would be great.
okay.
Action item. What, I'm sorry, what was the question?
We've been starting our meetings at 6 and it was sort of a
Yeah.
trial period.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the upcoming list? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to citizen comments. Just a reminder for those in person, you have 3 minutes. If you'd like to head on up to the podium, tell us who you are, if you're a resident of the city or those online as well. Anybody here in person want to make any comments? Okay, anybody online want to make any comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will move toward adjournment. And we will adjourn. Thank you.